for our final qualifying match for week 2. And Myriad, I'm so hyped about these two. My Slavic brother, Mr. Anotand, I am ready to see what he's going to pull out here, because this man, he's fought like a crazy man. And you can see, head to head, Wham is in for a bit of a show. We do see a glorious mustache on Anotand, though.
Yeah, it looks like Anotand has turned to certain performance-enhancing substances, according to this picture, clearly. And certainly paid fruit for him, finding himself here in the final, up against Wham for week 2 of the road to Red Bull Wololo Londinium here. And it's going to be quite the series, as we see in the head-to-head. Tiny edge over to Wham, but just like Anotand has said in the past, he, just like myself, both of us joined a little bit later in the game's lifespan. So those first series, on note, are when he was still in the rapid improvement stage. If you take out the early parts of 2023, let's say, from this head-to-head, then they're pretty much 50-50 neck in neck. Now, Wham has picked up the latest series in the KPMM, and KPMM before that was picked up by Anotand. Anotand won a tight set in the EGC Masters 4. But, I mean, these stats speak for themselves. This is about as close as a series can get.
And with the drafts almost getting concluded, we're going to take a quick look at the bracket as well to see how hard they've battled to get here. And with the scores not being updated just yet down there for Wham and Beastie, we know that Wham won this 3-1. But on the top side, Puppypaw and Anotand had a pretty close battle. Now, we know that Wham and Puppy, they practice together a lot. And these two are pretty evenly matched. But Anotand took down the pup already. Is he ready for brother number 2 to qualify for that UK spot? I was telling Myriad before we switched over here, I hope he qualifies this week so that he has enough time to get his visa, because I need to see Anotand at Wololo. And if it's not this week, he's still going to be a worthy opponent for anyone else hoping to make it there.
That's right, there's still 2 more weeks besides that, so all these lovely fan favorite names, hopefully myself among them, of course, Copium, but all these names we see here, we all get another chance in the next 2 weeks. So no too many tears for our fallen heroes here. There's going to be another chance next week, and then the week after that. But that's it. After that, that will be it. So today marks the day that the second contender, one of these two, will be joining Marine Lord in that upper top 4 echelon that has the privilege to go and compete at Red Bull Wololo, whereas the 2 next ones will be in the 2 coming weeks. And the draft, we have it here at the ready. And straight away there's a small difference, and this is somewhat rare, but differences can occur even in the initial double ban phase. We have Japan and Ottomans taken away from Anotand, but then he takes away Malians and Japanese away from Wham, which actually opens up Ottomans completely for Wham. Even throughout the rest of the bans, it has not been taken away, so he has it as his last pick and best civilization in his draft. He banned Malians away from Anotand, and Wham has been taken off of Byzantines. And besides that, we have Macedonians, Ayyubids, Rus, as well as Yushi, Tughlaq, Golden Horde, JD, and English. Anotand's drafts in Goku, Chinese, French, Delhi, Lancaster, Mongols, HRE, Byzantines, and KT. Very neck-and-neck drafts, I gotta say.
Well, you have to keep in mind, Myriad, we've reached a point in our gaming life where there's no more bad drafting at this rank. It just feels like there's so many good civilizations to go around. Sure, you'll have an edge, but a lot of what these guys are doing, it depends on those picks. When you get in, you snipe out, and maybe you snipe into the counter civ. Maybe that is the deciding factor here, but both these guys getting pretty evenly matched at drafts here. Personally, I am just excited to see English being drafted again, because now we might get to the bottom of it after all when the boys start picking if they're going to keep sniping that English, because that is the $1 million question. Now, Twitch chat, I actually went ahead and I asked why everyone's going industry wing. This was a big discussion for us yesterday, Myriad. Like, why is everyone going for the industry wing with Ayyubids? And I got told it's just because of all the resources you get. You sell your stone, and you just have a wonderful Castle Age timing with a lot of resources instantly. So, Ayyubids, after watching Wham play it and seeing how quickly he can adjust to what he's up against, so seeing how he played it against Beastie, it was crazy. So I am excited to see Ayyubids, and I want to see Wham go industry, because now I think we finally will understand why people are going for it behind the scenes. So Wham on Ayyubids, I'm so in. I'm now the biggest Wham Ayyubid fan in the world.
And King of the Hill is a very possible map to see it. As we say that, there we go. I was going to say, what would make perfect sense for Wham here is either King of the Hill and Rus, or, either Ayyubids and Rus, or Ayyubids and Ottomans. It would make a lot of sense. Or even Rus Ottomans. But Wham, as we saw, likes to play Rus on other maps as well, unlike most others. So he's keeping it for something else. So we're going to see for that. But on the other hand, for Anotand, this is very interesting. We saw he had a very special KT strategy lined up, which backfired a little bit last time we saw it, but Wham doesn't even want to risk it. And it makes sense, because Ayyubid's kind of gives him the space for that strategy to pull off. Instead, he opts for Byzantines instead, and Ayyubid Byzantines, traditionally very favored for the Byzantines, but this map works a bit differently. When it comes to getting that site in the center, I mean, few can hold it better than Ayyubids.
And yes, we've seen this with Hill and Dale. It's just something that people are really struggling with, really breaking through that point and actually landing the damage needed to end them. Yesterday, we saw this countless times where someone is just sitting back, being a little bit of a greedy goose, and it quickly paying off. And the same with Ayyubids. Ayyubids has shown how decent it can be to just get your castle timing, sit and push. And every single time it's been hitting so hard. But Byzantines, if they don't get punished, they don't mind. They have the same kind of playstyle where you want to be given a little bit of time to get that snowball on the road. So King of the Hill definitely doesn't play out your standard little dry Arabias or bald lands. We are getting two civs that love just being able to be left alone and getting their momentum going. Now, for early game aggression, though, I feel like Wham has the edge here. With the Ayyubids, you do have that little bit of flexibility. If you wanted to go and disrupt a bit of that Byzantine's economy, you have that option, and you won't pay a price for it because of those dervishes that they go for again and again and again in feudal.
They're too potent to pass up, right? The healing. You can get so much value out of them in that early feudal age, especially if you look to play a little bit aggressive, which has been done before by the Ayyubids up against the Byzantines. I know some players do really well when going for that playstyle, but others just go straight for the fast castle. But the fast castle can be a problem here for Ayyubids. That is why typically Biz does very well here, especially with the frontal gold on King of the Hill, which is always where it spawns. That, for longbows especially, that becomes a very easy target to strike, and suddenly there's a Kairos Siphon maybe even on the field, and yeah, things get way more complicated all of a sudden for the Ayyubids. I'm curious to what extent that will be the case, what level of commitment we're going to see in this early phase here from Wham. And even Anotand, on the other hand, I mean, he's not your typical Byzantine player, as we have also seen that to be the case. He can go for some very wacky things, but one thing's for sure, there's no trade post here, so mercenary choices are limited.
So you don't get any sneaky shenanigans like we have seen with a few of these guys, but luckily Byzantines, they have a decent array of options, but we do see time and time again, people just keep going for the longbows, because longbows in mass, they can kill anything. Absolutely anything. Again and again, the moment they get to 20, 30, it starts to snowball from there, and it's so hard to keep up because they're free. And that's the problem for a lot of people here. The problem, I think, for Byzantines, though, is the fact that the berries, only one patch, moving out is going to put you at risk significantly. Sometimes with other maps, you have a backwards berry spawn. Maybe you've got one that's a little bit out there that your opponent doesn't need to raid, but with this map, depending on how your sides spawn around the hill, you can very easily maneuver your units to go and disrupt these outside sources. So that's exactly what I'm expecting to see here from Wham. Wham has showed us again and again, he's the one who's going to raid. You're not going to just sit back and enjoy. So if he goes easy on Anotand, I would be very, very surprised. But for us to talk about the rest of this, guys, there's 3 minutes on the clock before the game begins. I want to take a look at the rest of this draft as well. Now we get to see all the maps in their glory, but no Holy Island. Apparently, neither of these guys want to be facing off against one another on the water. So, how do you feel about this draft and these players specifically opting for, again, just prioritizing these land maps?
I think Holy Island in particular, nowadays it's reached a point where not many players really enjoy the playstyle that seems to thrive on Holy Island, which I know I've seen a few times from people I've spoken to. And, you know, things are a bit up in arms about Holy Island as well. There's some disagreements as to what's effective. Many players are not sure exactly what often is the best or isn't the best there in terms of strategy and civ. So most would rather just not risk it and rely on something more comfortable, something they know better. Even here among this upper echelon, as we spoke during the previous series, we spoke about this at some length, right, about comfort versus viability. I think even at this level, that still is a pretty big part of these decisions a lot of the time. So for King of the Hill, it's going to be Ayyubids as to what's next. Anyone's guess, really. We know Anotand does really enjoy those hybrid maps, so if he does lose this game, he might look to lean on Kawasan as his map of choice. Whereas if Wham loses, what would Wham play? Probably Hill and Dale, right?
I was gonna say Hill and Dale feels more like a Wham map, and this time we don't have Bald Land, which I'm kind of surprised about, because Bald Land has been making its way through the draft consistently, but they're getting rid of the map with the most water and the least wood, to just ensure that those raids are not as optimal. But I can imagine Baldland is, again, a safe map for someone like Wham to pick. But on the other hand, I feel like Anotand, he likes his shenanigans too. So yes, Kawasan makes sense for me. But Wham, he's also been looking pretty scary on maps such as Front Range. So Wham, standard guy, he knows how to play the meta, he knows how to counter the meta. He most likely doesn't want to play against something that Anotand has prepared something for, especially considering this man has pulled out some pretty crazy things from the hat. So, for the rest of it though, I am hyped to see Socotra. I just want to see Socotra in action. We haven't had enough of it, and every single time it gets in front of us, we do get some ship shenanigans, and that is what we're here to see. But guys, we are about to hop on in. This is going to be a clash of giants, Byzantines versus Ayyubids on our favorite King of the Hill. Let's see who gets that sacred site and if they can hold.
Well, I'm in the color purple as the Ayyubids spawning towards the eastern side of King of the Hill, facing Voldo Esports is Anotand in the color yellow as the Byzantines spawning in the west side of King of the Hill here. And quite the matchup we have on our hands. We've seen this many times historically. It's gone back and forth, but typically Biz have had Ayyubids' number. But this map presents interesting dynamics with a single central sacred site. This is a pretty explosive opener for a series between these two, and often can be the result of high emotions as well, as that timer can often come down to the very last fractional second.
You see the Battle of Scouts already starting, looking a little feisty between these two, but I feel like Anotand came out ahead here in the scouting war, as he is now going to be able to cover a lot more of the map here. Wham now going for that circle around. We'll see where who the sheep count will favor. But Anotand definitely gets all the information he needs out here. Now, this is usually a little bit of an interesting situation for a lot of people when they play against the Ayyubids. You most likely don't want to go too greedy with the scouting because you want to drop off your sheep and still be able to go back and see what he's aging up with. But at the same time, you are most likely out there on your berries, I say, as I see nothing out there. Oh, wait. I had them switched around. Never mind. The villagers, they do want to get their sheep back. We're looking at the Byzantine. Sorry, guys. It's a few hours in. The brain's fried. And apparently, so is the English. So we can see that with this, he probably wants to get those sheep back and then go and see what the House of Wisdom is going to be searching for. Now, of course, it's been very linear for most of it. Ooh, he misses that sheep. But it's been a very linear, especially going into our usual dervish age up. We'll see if that is the way Wham is thinking. And if this is going to be his way of going aggressive right thereafter. Because Byzantines, they're investing in on the cisterns, and this can snowball pretty quickly. But reinforcement wing, Myriad! We're gonna get some camels, boy!
Yeah, this is quite interesting actually. This is very old school play here by Ayyubids. I know initially people loved doing this as the Ayyubids in a lot of matchups, but especially against the Byzantines, you can put a lot of early pressure on those berries. Byzantines already naturally slowed down due to the investment into systems, and then later on needing to get that berries in, which they do get oil from those berries, but the berries gathers very slowly indeed. Add to it the extra distance needed due to, of course, the sheep under the town center, but the berries, you know, there's some travel time there, making it even more inefficient. All of these factors can be abused by a well-placed early desert raider, which seems to be Wham's plan.
Now, with those desert raiders, of course, most people want to wait a bit to get the reinforcements so that they can be more potent. But early aggression is the key here. Byzantines, they struggle against that early aggression, especially with their age up, just usually being a little bit later and then having to reinvest after they've already gotten the systems up and running. These camels, though, they don't heal up. So if Anotand does get a little bit of damage down, it hits a little bit differently. But that singular Desert Raider will invoke a response from Anotand, which will just delay him if he wanted to go for something like a faster castle. I don't say fast castle because I know this man is responsible and he wouldn't do something that crazy against the Ayyubids.
Well, good thing Anotand is, because Wham certainly isn't. It's going to be a reinforcement wing into the most naked castle you have ever seen. No tower, not even one wood in the bank to use. It's going to be as naked as it can possibly be outside of this reinforcement. And this is quite intriguing, right? The reinforcement, as you said, is going to force a response from Anotand. Already the tower is on the way. And it's a big, big slowdown for the Byzantines here. Whereas Wham, he doesn't put a tower, and you know, we joke about it being naked and greedy. He doesn't actually need it. He really doesn't. What is under threat for him after Anotand ages up? Absolutely nothing. There's no hippodrome. Any spears that Anotand makes will be used for the defense against the raider. He could potentially make horsemen, but Wham will of course see that. And that's not going to be a problem for one desert raider initially. He can deal with one or two horsemen alongside some villages. So it's a big slowdown. I mean, Anotand only now finished his age up. Wham is almost ready to click up.
And this is that scary part where Wham, if he goes now for castle, what does he do and how does Anotand respond? Because whatever Anotand makes, he's always going to struggle with those trades initially. Of course, Limited are a pretty safe answer here because you can handle a lot of what comes out, but then your opponent goes for a handful of Gulams and all of a sudden there's just nothing doing damage to them. That's the crazy thing about Ayyubids. Even though it might not be the most optimal play to go for a specific unit here, it can be devastating no matter which way you go. An advancement wing is clicked up to get there as fast as possible. So we're not getting industry, we're not getting dervishes, we are just getting there quickly.
Yeah, this is very curious. Oh, I know exactly what this is, Whammon. Seeing this
What is
villager. This is the Gulam cheese. It's the proxy
my
Gulam
goodness.
cheese.
No.
This has been the downfall of so many players, both the ones doing it and the ones on the receiving end. You can never know how this is gonna go. But that villager, he's gonna set up 2, 3, even 4 barracks. Gulams are gonna be in Anotand's base before he even has his mercenary camp finished. Well, maybe not quite, but close.
This is what I've read. Making Gulams not the most optimal thing, but you can do anything. And Wham is about to land pretty heavily 40 seconds before that first one is clicked out. And that's the beauty of a strategy like this. You don't need a lot of gold. You just get to relax and build whatever you want from here on out. The DC firing at that camel, but the camel is purely a distraction. The gold is a far away dream, and Anotand is going to need to produce miracles, and longbows, they're as close to a miracle as you can get here. I'm excited to see if Wham goes for that +1 and how quickly he goes for it, because this is something he's going to need if he wants to make this man pay for it.
It's almost like the roles are reversed. Normally Anotand can be the one to pull out some pretty wacky strategies, but Wham is the one with the idea this time around. And I mean, the reality of this strategy is something Anotand should be aware of. He's definitely seen this and probably done it himself before. I actually don't know for sure he's done it before. I've seen it against Marine Lord in practice many, many months ago. However, to think of this in the moment and scout for it is a different matter entirely. And I'm not sure he sniffed it out yet. I mean, there's a tower going up on the gold now. The longbows are on the way, but the Ghulams are already in production. All we need here is some ranged armor, and the havoc will be endless.
Now the Ghulams are already underway, and we see them flooding one by one, stepping into the fire. But these camels are keeping the Londinium as busy as can be. They're not going to be there to support those Ghulams, and the Ghulams, they have arrived, but we see the longbows standing at the ready to fire away at them. The +1 ranged armor definitely not looking like they want to be facing this at all. Now, the numbers are going to start to matter, but this Ghulam that he's already picked off a significant amount of health, it doesn't look that great for Wham just yet, but we'll see how the floodgates start when they are opened, and still not seeing a +1 ranged upgrade.
Yes, it's tough. I mean, the macro here is very difficult. Wham has sacrificed everything for this timing, right? There's no golden age. There's no economic upgrade. There's no blacksmith yet either. It's all very hard to afford still for Wham in this position. And Anotand has experience countering this because this was the exact same matchup that he was in against Marine Lord. He was the one doing the Ghulam, and Marine Lord held this with a huge amount of towers as well as the longbows, and that seems to be exactly what Anotand is planning. Second arrow slit tower now on the way, and this is going to be very important for him on this defense. You need those towers, because ultimately enough arrows can take down even these heavily armored Ghulams as Undermesh. Only a few seconds out now, and the Ghulam count is climbing. Anotand, he can't even think of an age up yet. That is how you die to this, without a doubt. He has to clear off the initial heavy wave without taking too much damage, and then maybe Castle Age is on the cards.
Now, Anotand already using a little bit of that gold he has to get wheelbarrow. He wants to make sure those villagers that when they run away quickly and will not be risking their lives. But the Ghulams are feeling a lot more brave now as we see them stepping forward, and the tower is barely touching them. Villagers popping into it pretty quickly, but the longbows, they are firing at that one Ghulam who is taking about 1 million shots without going down. +2 ranged armor now coming in as well, and look at that Ghulam. He is taking so many shots. The longbows now, they are the victims here, and you cannot afford to lose these.
No, you cannot. The longbows are the absolute necessity in holding this, but Anotand is already down to 3 from his initial batch. Even the Desert Raider causing idle time on that southern berries. Anotand needs every ounce of resource here to hold this. But honestly, I think it might be too little too late. The second longbow batch pops out, but they're in no position to really do any significant damage to these Ghulams. Only now is Steel Arrow finishing for Anotand. As Wham's secondary ranged armor finishes, villagers are running rampant. Not many have fallen so far, only 2, and there's a very nice Akritoy entrapment alongside the TC there. That's a great move there by Anotand, but is it enough really? For every Ghulam he kills, feels like 1 or 2 more even join the fight here for Wham.
And he's going to have access to all the resources on the map. He knows this. That's exactly why he's out there on the deer. The longbows are trying to focus fire one at a time. Villagers desperately trying to get that tower up. Keep it up. They are trying to get it reinforced as well with the upgrades now coming in. Every bit of the repair will matter here. And the Ghulam is firing away, but the longbows are doing their jobs. Those villagers, though, they're getting a bit low, and one will go down.
One singular horseman from Anotand could actually cause a fair bit of damage here to Wham, running towards those southern berries. He needs to find even this moment there to put at least a tiny bit of pressure on Wham, because you see the Ghulam count isn't decreasing, it's only increasing up to double digits now with 11. Fortified tower is fortified. Even the cistern itself is probably on Presidium now to boost its armor and resistance. But is it enough? It's already under fire. The villagers are under siege within the tower. It's actually still on Conscriptio, so there's no additional resistance for this tower, and it's gonna fall.
And that was the key. That's what you said. The moment the towers can't hold this, that is when things start falling apart. We can see those Ghulams are barely taking a hit. The longbows are microing their hearts out, but it's so difficult. And the Londinium are just not in position to frontline this. The longbows are the most precious cargo. and they're just not able to hold it down. Gulams now, again, we're still at 12 here. The numbers just seem to keep replenishing, and the food sources are very much far from depleted for Wham. The idle eco from Anotand is really starting to make a difference here. We do see a bunch of farms being placed down, but those farms being placed down just means that he cannot be using those resources for units because he is busy transitioning, and no transition is going to halt this once the Gulam numbers get to this point.
You can see the sheer strength of this timing here. The destroyed value tells it it's neck and neck, and considering Wham has been diving on the TCs throughout the entirety of the fighting so far in this game, but now manages to exceed the destroyed value, just tells the tale of how terrifying this all-in really is, and it's seeing it manifest here in front of our eyes, as Anotand had virtually no chance this game. If you don't see this, you will pretty much undoubtedly die in the moment to it, and Wham delivers this with fantastic precision in game number 1 to pick up an early lead.
And getting this early lead is exactly what puts him on the course for taking that final or that second spot at the Wololo Championships. And this is the crazy thing for me. Wham was the one who joined Marine Lord last time, and now he looks to be the one to try and qualify for that second spot already. Can we get a repeat of the past? This time, though, Marine Lord does not get seeded into the finals, but there's still a huge battle ahead of him. Wham, though, setting the pace for Anotand to learn about proper scouting here and understanding exactly what could be on the menu. I feel like the moment Anotand saw this, he maybe realized that it's already too late to be able to handle this, because he knows the power thereof. But we do have Helen Dale coming up next, and for once, we're seeing some different civilizations. Ottomans, a little bit of an ode to the past, but Rus being banned out instead of Ottomans. That is something that I'm quite surprised about.
I just want to make sure my eyes are not deceiving me. What civilization does Anotand have here?
I don't know. Is that a new land civilization? Because I've seen that flag before, but not in this type of a map. And that's going to be KT. Disgusting. Guys, KT on Hillendale. What a day to be alive. Now, I can see why. Because you have 3 sacred sites. They're pretty far apart. You're going to force your opponent to constantly be reacting to these. And you can switch them up the whole time. You're always going to get some kind of trickle in there, especially in the early game. When Ottomans needs a little bit of time to ramp up, you could get the investment that you've already put in there. So Ottomans, though, it's a pretty solid civ on this map. We haven't seen this in a few seasons, but my goodness, when we used to, this is going to be an uphill battle. Pun intended.
Yeah, it's pretty special, actually. I mean, Ottomans kind of needs no introduction here. Ottomans is special. Ottomans is very special civilization. Their ability to just ignore every single of the game's rules is fascinating, frankly, and still win despite that. And Wham is going to look to try and show us why that is the case. They're just incredibly strong on every map, in every situation, with not a single bad matchup in the game. And then there's KT, who I'd be surprised if they have even an even matchup, frankly, on these land maps. I think that would be a struggle. But there's a few, to be fair, that aren't too terrible. I would not say Ottoman is one of them, frankly. So we have quite the game on our hands here today. But I'm very excited to see what Anotand's going to pull out.
And usually on this map, we see a little bit of early game shenanigans if the spawn is just right. But the early game shenanigans, the name of the game is going to be just a normal old military school with a standard old opening of getting 1 load of stone to make sure that you can get that military school up and running. And I like this. It's pretty standard. We're going to have a good old plain old game that doesn't require us to try to figure out everything from scratch. Military school opening with a few spearmen coming on out. That feels good. Now, Knights Templar, on the other hand, going for that wood early on. I just love this about the civilization. with every wood chop, you just get every bit of food with it as well. So it always feels good to be able to invest in anything that costs wood early. And that's exactly what he's doing by building that wall onto the wood line right there to the right side. Because it's not really costing him anything, and it keeps him safe for longer.
And it's probably already planning ahead towards the potential for spears to show up quite soon here for Wham. And yeah, it's going to be 2TC. It makes sense. It feels like, especially in this kind of a matchup, this is really the only option you have here as the Knights Templar. And that seems to be also on the cards here for Anotand as well. But a very, very curious build order, actually, I have to say. I haven't seen this before. We'll have to watch how the timing is for that second town center. This could be interesting. But for Wham, on the other hand, that was a military school opener, and this is classic for Ottomans. You've got to start pumping those spears straight away, build up the progress towards that next vizier point, as every single unit produced is going to build up progress for it.
Now, when you get into a spot where you can go 2TC without being punished, we've seen stuff like this play out on maps like King of the Hill, and this map plays out in a bit of a similar fashion to the punishment around King of the Hill. King of the Hill is so difficult to punish, unless you have, of course, rush your opponents with ghulams, right? But second TCs are so hard to shut down on this map because you don't really need to move out, at least for the first while. And KT, a civ that doesn't mind staying in their base and just capitalizing on this. The units they get from this, definitely not something they're going to mind just exploring and letting Ottomans do their little ticking and then the talking with a lot of those Sabahis. I feel like Knights Templar has a few good responses to this, but Wham is about to spot that wall and learn that, hey, this guy is going to TC. What do I do from here? So Twin Minaret Madriz coming out, safe food, nice hospitality on the side of Anotand. But now, what does Wham do with this information? He knows the second TC is there. Does he just greed it out and do something sneaky his way? Or is he actually going to try and punish this? Because that's the difficult part.
An all-in on this map especially is easier said than done, I would say. It is a possible option here for Wham that he could look to do. But it's always tricky, isn't it? Even with something like the Ottomans against something like KT. All-ins in Feudal Age, they don't often pan out the way you expect them to. They're very messy affairs, and that could be the case here as well. With the Knights Hospitality wing for Anotand, and you touched earlier on the sheer strength of that wood economy for Knights Templar, it is absolutely the case. Every 5 wood that's gathered for Knights Templar is also 1 food. 20% of wood is food, which when you're making a defense on 2TC with something like Spear Archer, that is when that bonus really shines. No civ in the game can mass those 2 units as well in this situation compared to KT, leading to some absolutely huge numbers early on, which can make it very difficult for even something like Ottomans to crack them.
Now, I like the placement here of the Madriz as well, just making sure that you utilize it as a mill. But yeah, the massive units I can imagine coming out of KT. I mean, we've seen the crazy stuff they pull out on hybrid and water maps, but like I said, King of the Hill, it plays out well because it's protective here, and that second TC is about to be placed down. I want to see where that thing goes because he is, and this is what I love, he's putting it down safely. It's at the front though, so it can be contested a little bit, but it keeps the wood line safe, and it in turn will make sure that your villagers can try to keep it safe too. Now the spearman does get picked off here, trying to shut down the deer, but this TC makes sure that he has access to the wood even if Wham comes to try shut it down. And with the Sapahis in mind, he's definitely going to look to do so. We do see the archery range coming out too, so the forward push is definitely anticipated and prepared for.
Yes, archers as well as Sipahi on the menu here for Wham. So there's definitely going to be a little bit of pressure. This is what's important with Ottomans. Ottomans, they can honestly do anything, but it always comes from a baseline of some unit commitment. They need to have at least a few units in that feudal age. They can potentially go an almost naked castle, but it doesn't feel good for them to do so. They love going castle from a position of at least some authority within the game. And that's exactly what Wham is likely to go for. He's going to get this tower up, deny this wood line, put probably a little bit of pressure, then he might look to go for a castle timing after finding good damage.
Now he's already gotten that first vizier point, and what did he get? Probably a lot of sheep. Let's go take a look at that Ottomans TC to see 2 imams. Oh, where are the imams? They're still coming, boys. Still coming. Oh, there they are. Not showing up. Oh, they're just a little bit delayed in the UI. Poor guys. Now this is going to mean that these types of pushes are going to be quite spicy, but he does pull a ton of villagers to stop this. The Zabahi, though, he gets on in, he will stop the tower, but he also gets a spearman as a kill, and no villagers go down yet, but eventually one does pay the price, and the villager starts to build yet again, but he does need to be careful here. Those villagers are ready to take on another fight, and Anotand now, he's got a handful of archers in the mix.
Shaba Sipahi running away from the scout. I think he was just barely, almost a few hits from death. Wham manages to snipe it with the scouts, but now there's archers now on the field, so that tower is not going to go up that easily. And Wham did lose a spear underneath that TC and almost barely got away with that Sipahi in time. Losing that Sipahi would actually be pretty big damage at this point in time. Wham has to be super careful. He can't lose this village and can't lose the Sipahi, which he did.
And losing the Zabahi at this point just means that this push is a little bit weaker. I say that, but the other Zabahi is ready to come right for it. And these imams keeping that villager alive, we can see now trying to focus fire a few of these spears instead, because they are looking a little bit squishier than the usual old sippies. Now, some of these villages are quite low, so going to be easy to pick up with that tower once it gets a little bit of an emplacement. And we do see Wham getting his stone as needed. Now, most likely to be able to keep building all of those military schools, but the boys are pulled and they have something to say about this tower.
And this is quite a big desperate pull here from Anotand. He knows the importance of this tower. It cannot go up because that is all the wood that he has access to, and he's willing to sacrifice everything to make sure it doesn't go up. Will it go up? I don't think so, but he pays a heavy price for it. 2 villagers have already died. 3 of his archers have also died. More villages are likely to fall. 1 more, make that 4 total at this point in time, and that's a lot of damage. And it would be even way more if not for the Hospitalia wing that gives plenty of extra health to these villagers. Maybe a little bit of an overzealous dive here potentially from Wham. Costs him 2 Sipahi as well as an Imam. So that could have actually been a lot worse there for Anotand.
Now, Wham pulling back here is the thing I'm very surprised about. Wham, he's putting himself into the spot where he's like, hey, I want to commit to this, but I'm not sure how much I need to commit. And honestly, I think another tower, and that's exactly what he does. He goes for yet another tower. Sipahi standing at the front. He's seen how these villagers get baited. 1 imam will still be able to heal up the vill, but he does need to be a little bit more careful now. So the Sipahi numbers starting to get really scary, and a few spears mixed in for Anotand. Now feudal age spears, so they should be able to handle them once they dive in deep. But Anotand learns from this. He's on that second TC. He's lost a few vills, but KT is supposed to be behind in villagers. And Anotand is in a very happy spot, not behind.
Indeed he is. Second DC is already bearing fruit, now taking a pretty comfortable economic lead at this point in time. But the threat is far from over. Sipahi, equal counts to archers now, and more than doubling the spear count. That is kind of what you'd expect in this situation, isn't it? Just so much military from the Ottomans compared to the anemic economy for this point in time for Anotand. Sure, he has more workers, but he can hardly access everything he wants to access. He can get the wood and food for now, but the tower is officially up. Arrow-slits immediately on the way. Fortification will undoubtedly be on the menu here for Wham as well. And it looks like it might just be a full committal. There's no additional economic upgrades here for Wham, which I question just a little bit, especially when doing what looks to be a very committed push here. You would love to have them and make sure that your economy can compete quite well so you can get even further units out, but it's just more and more units for now.
Now, what's pretty interesting about this is Anotand would actually be able to go on other wood sources. He should be able to move to the back and get some other wood lines, because Wham is not scouting whatsoever. A nice small little wall could secure that whole side. Wham now moving a little bit to the top, but Anotand is very comfortably just sitting on this wood line with no vision to actually obstruct those villagers chopping away. Now, Wham's army is starting to get scary, and another Vizier point is coming out. We will see what he picks up, but the tower is going to get ready and emplaced so that nothing can come and shut it down. But the villagers are here at the back, and the Sipahis, they are not going to be making too much of a connection with the units in position.
Yeah, great pull away there from Anotand before losing any villagers. Just sacrifices one archer for his safety, but a lot of idle time has been caused. Meanwhile, from the front, idle time as well on the wood line behind this, and the food struggles are going to start for Anotand very, very soon, even more than they already are present. Because besides those berries and those deer, there's nothing safe there for Anotand. He has one little piece of respite with those berries down towards the southern corner. But moving that far out, although it doesn't seem far out in this situation against Sipahi, it's always dangerous.
Now, the archer numbers are quite scary. With Anotand having 22 of them, he doesn't mind taking a fight. The problem is just he's fighting against a Mechter that does give that extra armor if he plays the right drums. So Anotand now, he does need to be careful. But at the same time, Wham is the one here that can easily overcommit. And Anotand now pulling his whole army downwards, leaving the villagers open yet again. But you can see him trying to balance, finding that balance between protecting the food villagers and actually protecting the front. Wham is looking for an opening, but he's just not been given any.
Yes, great defense here by Anotand so far. Only a bit of idle time suffered, and 5 village deaths. Yes, it kind of hurts, but considering what he's been through, it's not nearly as bad as it could have been. But the pressure is unrelenting, and eventually there'll be a slip-up, as we see right now. Although, the extra health paying massive dividends here for Anotand, and he does react afterwards. Mechter is going to go down, sniped away by the archers. But again, more and more idle time force. This is starting to add up slowly, but it's all a ploy at the end of the day. It's a responsible castle here from Wham. Exactly how we envisioned. Some pressure, some damage, some responses are being forced. But behind this, the real play is on the way.
Now, Anotand is going for his own castle age pretty soon here, with not producing a single villager more. And honestly, 13 minutes into the game, I feel like Anotand's second TC has paid off already. Anjuman Empire has been chosen. So this man, he's looking for that castle fight that will be coming in. But Wham, he just isn't able to break through this, and he keeps bleeding a unit every now and again. So at some point, this is going to start to feel a little bit out of hands with Knights Templar just capitalizing on that second TC for so long.
Yes, with the Anjuman, Anotand's going to have, in theory, the perfect response to deal with Wham's composition. The heavy spearman will deal very well with the Sipahi and certainly survive for a long period of time up against the archers. But Wham seems to be aware of this reality and is already moving into those men-at-arms. And men-at-arms, they are actually stronger than the spears in a direct engagement. I'm not sure exactly what the stat difference is, but they are better at that job in particular. But of course, they don't count the cavalry as heavy spears do, so there has to be a trade-off. And Anotand, outside of the veterancy, and Undermesh makes that his priority, pumping as many out as he possibly can, and he will need plenty, without a doubt. Veterancy for the Sipahi is coming in very soon here for Wham. Looks like Archers is not on the menu for him anymore. Might just look to go into pure Sipahi and men-at-arms.
That makes sense, because when you see your opponent going for heavy spears, of course, you know your archers are just not going to be hitting the same way. Sipahis, though, coming from every single angle, and Wham, that tower gives him the vision, it gives him the power to rotate confidently. And Anotand is the one just desperately reacting. Now, the Sipahis looking again for a bit of a surround, but the villagers are so quick to react. Anotand, the fastest fingers in all of the land, are now getting +2 attack as well. He wants to handle these Sipahis one shot at a time, even if it is with archers.
Autoculture on the way now for Wham, finally getting that one in as he moves out to the relevant food sources for it. 2 Sipahi managed to find their way into the base here, and are quickly met by the spears. And Wham, he's dealt damage, right? 6 villager kills, plenty of idle time, but is it really enough though? Because Anotand's mass is looking pretty scary. He has a very decisive archer lead here, and plenty of heavy spears on the field now as well. Wham, meanwhile, he has his military schools pumping. Although, as we say that though, Anotand may have bit off more than he can chew, extending far beyond his confines here, past the wood line, and towards this tower position here from Anotand, from Wham, and in turn opens up his base. And Wham recognizes this, slipping in with his Sipahi, and just the presence of them causes half of Anotand's economy to run for their lives.
But what's interesting about this is Anotand is not making units. He's got 1,300 food in the bank, he's got gold, he's got food, but he's making absolutely nothing. So, ooh, we see a pause. This might be the explanation of what is going on with Anotand's eco here. So, Anotand currently experiencing apparently a bit of lag. So, he did mention his internet not doing the best of work earlier on. So, letting him normalize here. But this position that Wham is now in, he's got to ask himself, do I need to win it right now? Do I need to push right through all of this? And can I even do so? With the crossbows he's getting, he should be able to handle these spears that Anotand is investing into. And a lot of men-at-arms is going to make this a lot harder for Anotand to actually break through.
Yeah, it's true. The men-at-arms is a real problem. Boosted by the Mechter, they can serve as a fantastic front line for the Sipahi, who, well, when they're behind men-at-arms, they're pretty much range units, let's be honest, with that extra range. So they're going to do great work when it comes to that. They can activate Fortitude because the men-at-arms will be in front of them and do an immense amount of damage throughout the whole fight. As looks like all the soldiers present have had some very spicy food and are now releasing all of that tension.
Now, slowly but surely, Anotand just lets this position of his turn into a production machine, because we now see a bunch of barracks being placed down. He wants to make sure that this is something he can withstand. He knows the power of the Ottomans, and especially with the military being neck and neck, this is going to be scary. Of course, you do have the Mehtash on the side of Wham. If you can snipe those out, it becomes a lot less scary. But at the same time, there's also the risk of running into those mangonel shots, especially with your composition being so heavily reliant on archers.
Anotand now challenging this outpost directly as the first mangonel arrives to the front line here. And the mangonel is going to be pivotal against this heavy backline here from Anotand. A backline that frankly is looking really healthy. And he has the necessary heavy spears to deal with the Sipahi. But the men-at-arms and Wham's own crossbows are a bigger concern here, as Anotand can't really have enough gold access here to get the numbers he needs together alongside all the other upgrades. In terms of upgrades though, Wham is very far behind, surprisingly, only now getting his undermesh, whereas Anotand has +2 ranged damage and +1 ranged armor by now. So when it comes to a fight, this could be closer than it looks.
Oh, Anotand is definitely in a great spot here now. With all those heavy spearmen, things start to snowball a bit out of control here. Now, the mangonel shot can still be critical, but Anotand, I think the man's happy where he is right now. Wham, he's put everything into this push, and he knows if he doesn't do this in the next few minutes, Knights Templar is going to get out of control. And we don't have any crazy pilgrim plays, because apparently with the right spawn, you can just stop any possibility of getting through that line. So the gold running out is going to be quite critical at this stage of the game. But with the farm transition that he's slowly building out behind this, he is constantly going to be able to make units. And, ooh, the mangonel's being sent so far forward.
Yeah, the Mangonel has to be very careful. He looks for a connection on the back line, finds a few boulders, but nothing quite decisive, and Anotand is just pushing ever forward here. The position here from Wham is quite tenuous because the Mechta has fallen, and this composition is not easy to micro. He's keeping the Sipahi in reserve, wanting to clear out a lot of these heavy spears before re-engaging, and that's proving to be a good idea. There's a slightly open position on the left flank, but Anotand reacts with a kite backwards, and Anotand is actually clearing up most of the mass here from Anotand. Massive mangonel hit though, straight in the center of that range mass. But the Sipahi numbers are not really there, and Wham is actually forced to retreat.
Now, he does pull back for a second here, hoping the mangonel shot can give him what he needs, but unfortunately, Anotand is in control right now, getting that fortress up with 32 villages. He knows the importance of this, of keeping this lead and keeping this momentum going.
The lack of upgrades is really, really hurting Wham in this position. This is just a blunder. There's no two ways about it. There's no range damage. So these crossbows, these archers that he has, now even the vizier point for the Janissaries has been called in. Not normally something you want to go into unless it's to just either survive or win the game. And it looks like it won't win Wham the game in a position where he should be in a position of power, but that's not the case anymore, I would say, as the farms are coming up for Anotand behind this. Plenty of them as well, and with the fortress up, the front entrance is now way more barricaded than before, and Wham is going to have to look to other avenues.
Now, Wham, he looks at the other avenue, and the other avenue that he spots is, oh, we could just go for a ton of relics, and relics he gets. But with a lot of Janissaries in his arsenal too, this doesn't feel too bad if you were playing against a majority of horse composition. But unfortunately for him, this is not something standard that you're playing against. He's got himself one trebuchet as well to deal with this keep at the front. The fortress, mini keep as we may, is definitely not going to be something that wants to fall, but it will with the right support. Wham, though, he's capitalizing on every bit of free unit he can get and hoping this will be enough. But the pushes here and the heavy spearmen, they are getting on top of this, and you can see they're barely taking damage. Janissaries are trying their best, but they are ready to take a beating.
I think Wham has maybe forgotten that the fortress actually gives the same vision as an outpost here for KT. So Anotand saw the Sipahi moving away and immediately moves in to challenge the rest of Wham's mass and does great damage, admittedly. Kills off most of the back line, but the Mangonels as well as the Sipahi reconverging with the mass means that he cannot stay there forever. Pilgrims get discovered and they will both die. There is still plenty of food on the map for Wham to work with, so the lack of farms isn't too big of a concern just yet. But if Wham ever loses this central position, the game is over.
And getting to the food problem that these guys may face, it feels like Anotand has got himself set up a lot better than Wham is already. We do see those little dots all around the map, knowing that there are some farm transitions underway. Anotand, though, he's getting that second fortress, which just means another solid trickle of gold that will be coming in. But we also have a spicy boy called Wham, who's building his whole economy, bringing a ton of his economy to the other side of the map with a sneaky little wall. And we know when those villagers make their way through here, Wham loves to build a few buildings to get control of a map.
And I think that fortress towards the southern right side is a really bad piece of news here for Wham. Not only does that secure a big 8k, but also a sacred side. So sacred side victory I don't think is really going to be on the cards for Wham for much longer. That can pretty simply be decapped by Anotand there. Great bombard, not as strong as it is in Imperial Age, but still definitely an effective tool against these fortifications. This fortress here in the center, stronger fortress than normal. And once again, I think Anotand sees the Sipahi moving away and he's about to move in, but there's enough mangonels to make him think twice now.
Now, Anotand, he's trying to do a little bit of his own raiding instead of just defending, but he runs into a mass of Sipis and he realizes, hey, this could be damaging, but the Great Bombard is going down, and that is the greatest thing for him, because getting rid of it means absolute destruction from here on out. That was your power move. Wham losing a major part of this, and the heavy spearmen now getting a pretty good surround here. He pulls some of them back to deal with the Sipahis if they dare step on him. Mangonel's doing some decent jobs with these shots, but the Mangonel of Anotand doing his own little bit of work on to all those Janissaries that are falling like flies. But Wham's mass is replenishing. I just don't know if it's going to be enough, especially with this lead that Anotand has.
The military schools are definitely working overtime now, part of the potency for the Ottomans and one of the reasons they have been so oppressive for so very, very long. Yet Anotand is doing an incredible piece of work here, challenging them. Once again, a bit of a stalemate there, neither side really seeming to come in out on top. Anotand is still confined to his base, but he actually has access to everything he needs. He has gold now, he still has wood, a massive wood line in the south there, even a big stone here that he has access to. Already he has 2 fortresses going. I think the main question here is which way do those pilgrims go? Do they go in front of that hill or behind it?
Now,
Well, actually, there's no
with that-
pilgrims for now because the sites are capped, but soon enough we'll find out.
That was the hope of that poor little villager. He really wants to get his pilgrims back at work. But you have to keep in mind, Anotand, he's going to need to keep repairing this. And the army from Wham, it keeps on coming, but losing that Great Bombard was a major Vizier point sacrifice that he has made now. He does have a little bit of control on the map, and you have to keep that in mind. Wham is the one who's out here. Sure, Anotand also has a bit more control on this side where he's able to get that big goal to last him just a bit longer. But Wham's army, it keeps replenishing, and for some reason, Anotand's lead just doesn't feel like it's just enough to stop this army's constant presence in front of his base.
Still only one Treb on the field for now, or Wham, but another one soon to join the fray. And due to the Angevin Empire choice here for Anotand, it means these fortresses are extra tanky compared to regular. Very, very durable indeed. So it's a pretty tough job for just one Treb to take them down. And Anotand still has stone to work with. He can keep repairing them for a while longer. But you can see just how quickly Wham is remassing as well. Despite not having as good of a food economy or as many villagers as Mangonels, finds some connections, but no deaths just yet. But despite this, Wham's army is looking incredibly scary still. And his food eco is still pretty good despite this. There's still berries to work with. He's got most of his own farms in by now as well. Even 4 relics, although one is yet to be deposited. With Kingdom of Poland behind this for Anotand, he finds the space to age up, and this might be exactly what he needs. The only issue is though, is that he has about the lowest quality army you can possibly have as any civ. It's just spearmen and archers.
And soon enough, with Kingdom of Poland, he's planning to switch that to horses. But the Janissaries, they are not going to mind this switch coming his way. And Wham, he's pretty close to clicking up that age up himself. And Ottomans with the age up feels absolutely devastating, depending on what they go for. And I say this because usually we're so used to getting faster production on those military schools. But at the same time, there's been some plays around those Vizier points as well. And I would love to see Wham shaking things up just a little bit, but it would be so risky to pull out on a game like this.
Yeah, with his own Imperial Age around the horizon. It kind of has to be Istanbul Imperial Observatory. It's just too potent for those military schools. There's no way. He's actually doing it. It's CK Castle. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. It's, yeah, I'm not sure why. I mean, I guess he, to be fair, he needs it to hold this position, but I don't know if he's going to be up fast enough or in time, as Anotand is just moving in. Sipahi reconvene with the main force behind. There's plenty of Mangonels here for both players to shoot off. The problem is most of Wham's backline is hold up altogether, so Anotand's Mangonels getting huge value behind this, but Anotand's frontline cannot hold the onslaught of men-at-arms as well as Sipahi. They're brave enough to dive underneath the fortress now. Anotand no longer has an army in this game. At least for now, as Sipahi now dive past the fortress, and the Mangonels are next on the chopping block. One has fallen, make that 2, the third, and the fourth is also undoubtedly going to fall. Schlatter cavalry now join the fray, but with so many Janissaries 30 on the field already, to what end? It begs the question, as Imperial is in now for Wham, his own upgrades are going to follow suit, but I think Anotand might have pulled the trigger a bit too early.
Anotand, he gets his Imperial Age, but the cost is insane. And all those Janissaries are really showing us why Ottomans is going to be the civ that is always just banned. Wham getting that honor of debuting the Ottomans on a map like Hillendale, or I would say the last time in competitive play. Another fortress coming up now. And Anotand is clawing his way, or at least trying to claw his way back into this after losing a majority of his army. And it doesn't feel like he's able to replenish that fast enough.
No, he simply cannot. The gold is drying up, and the strength... It's just a lot of it is just the army. Wham's army is just on so many levels superior to Anotand's, even with the Schlatter present, that it's just... There's no other ways about it. I mean, the Sipahi, Janissary, siege with Mechter, this is the bane of any late-game army. I don't think any army in the game can really contest with this, even today. Maybe there are some close contenders, but I guarantee KT is not one of them. and Anotand is struggling with that fact now coming to fruition. As the Schlatter numbers are climbing, but as we mentioned this about the Janissaries will have no issues dealing with that. Meanwhile, plenty of archers on the field for Anotand as well, and his own spearmen, but finding the resources to afford these much needed imperial upgrades, which may potentially be enough if you have an advantage of them to break through this position. Finding that is easier said than done.
Now Wham, he is the one he keeps building towers this far forward, and the great part about that CK castle is just the fact that nothing will break through it. That thing hits like, I would say a truck, but no, it hits like a great bombard, and that's exactly the whole point of it. It controls most of this map. Anotand, he may have access to that big gold on the side, but it feels like it's the last one he will ever have access to again.
Makes you wonder here if the Kingdom of Poland was the right choice for Anotand. Typically we see a lot of conversation regarding the Republic of Venice as a choice for KT up against Ottomans in particular. The condottiero, such an effective tool against any and all gunpowder, including Janissaries. But that is a memory of the past now for Anotand. Not sure it would have been enough, honestly. The gold cost of them would have also been a big limiting factor here for him. He'd never get the mass needed to break through here. The siege is just never ending here from Ottomans. Historically accurate for them indeed.
The Ottomans, known as a true powerhouse of civilizations in the past, and showing us the Knights Templar, they were barely a figment of, or a relic of the past that did not exist as long as the originals. Now Wham, he's got those two trebuchets just firing away at everything slowly, and a whole front line of Janissaries. And I honestly did not think I would say that sentence in my life, but apparently Janissaries will just delete everything running at it, and that's exactly going to be put to the test here. We do see the Schlachters trying to make their way forward, and the archers, they do need to dodge those Mangonel shots, but the Janissary front line is melting a little bit. They're just getting replenished pretty quickly.
Yes, the fight is a bit of a mess here from both sides. Wham is struggling to utilize his composition to its full control. There's so many units to worry about. The siege, as well as the Sabahi, as well as the backline, all require very dedicated micro, and that means that Anotand is able to break through with his enveloping encirclement of the army here from Wham, and is able to live yet another day, as the Schlatter now are chasing the Sabahi around the flanks, and Wham's army has definitely been almost fully cleaned up. There's still a lot of Janissaries on the field, but the mass isn't there anymore. It's instead Anotand who now takes a pretty commanding population lead.
Now, Anotand in this position, he feels okay. Now, this was just something that he pushed off. Now he has Schlachters. This is great. But at the same time, you're still up against Ottomans, and Ottomans is not a civ that slows down an Imperial. This is just going to keep on going. Now, you got to ask yourself, this choice from Wham to go for the landmark, that doesn't help his economy just be so much better. Was this something that is sustainable the later this goes? Because Anotand is getting yet another fortress to just ensure he can get those pilgrims up and running uncontested. I say uncontested, but there's a wall. Oh, that's so genius. Oh my goodness.
Oh, and actually Anotand has some sneaky strategies lined up as well. Siege Workshop on the flank there from Wham, on the flank of Wham's base, I mean. Could spell doom later on, and Trebuchet, we're witnessing the best trebuchets in the game, the KT trebuchets, and well, the only siege they have access to besides the regular siege engines, is now working its way down that Seagate castle. And Wham's position in this game, I think, is getting increasingly weaker, right? He doesn't seem as in control anymore after that fight. You can see Anotand's zone of influence is expanding around the flanks. Wham still holds this central position, and that is the most important one. But for how long? Because with these Schlatter running around rampantly, eventually they will break through into that economy, and Wham's slow army is going to have a tough time responding. As the Sabahi, however strong they are, Schlatter is where they have more than met their match.
That's one thing that I was wondering about. Is there anything that can shut down Sabahis? But apparently Schlatter is the answer. Even with these numbers here, we do see the Sabahis trading out pretty well, though. Now, Anotand, against all odds, he has now control of those big goals, and he's very comfortable in doing so. Wham, even though the villager count is pretty even, that second TC has been shut down, we are still in a bit of a stalemate here. And I think this is also why we haven't seen Hill and Dale as much in tournaments. It can lead to some pretty long games. I think historically we've seen games that can go over an hour and a half on this. And honestly, at this rate, it looks like Wham and Anotand aren't looking at closing this out at any point. Anotand finally gaining some ground, and here at the front lines, he's got to be careful with these archers though, because they are getting deleted, and the wood is going to get less and less on this map.
Anotand's archers get caught out of position by the Janissaries. Archers trade cost effectively against Janissaries, but not when they're so severely outnumbered, as Wham is just hoovering through this mass here from Anotand. Anotand, though, looking for a break-in towards that eastern position. The entryway up on the hill is now being under siege directly from that siege workshop, which has been discovered by now. The Sipahi are on there, so there won't be any significant damage done, but the fortress zone of influence is still expanding further towards that southern part of the map. Seagate Castle has fallen, but the position is still controlled here by Wham, who is remassing very healthily indeed. Even without the Istanbul Observatory, just these military schools pumping are doing so much here for Wham, and he can remass so effectively.
Now, the Schlachters are trying to run around and burn down what they can, but this lead in the military is hard to replenish, especially with the, I would say, with the turnover of these units. They're just constantly being sent to the meat grinder one by one. And the archers very quickly showing us how they can melt if just not microed properly against those mangonels. Now, I'm a little bit worried here for Anotand. For a second there, it looked like he was ready to fight this game all the way through. But now, Wham just reminded him why Ottomans, again, is bad. Now, he does get a little bit of a surrounding on all the villagers. And sure, at this stage of the game, the villagers don't matter as much. It does matter when you're gonna get to lower than 100 if this continues. But the Sipahis are met with some Schlachters, and the villagers running back towards the gold, hoping for better days. But the Schlachter quickly showed them they're not gonna fight this 1v1.
Damage has been dealt though. Although most of the villagers got away, the majority of those pilgrims were caught right as they reached the sacred site without giving Anotand his much needed gold. Now he still has mining operations, so that's fine for now. Income is still looking healthy, but I mean, you can't have too much gold as KT when you have the most gold expensive units in the game. Keep coming up by Wham here to secure a trifecta of very bounteous resources here. The large stone, 2 large gold veins. It's a great position here for Wham to secure. The Schlatter, on the other hand, looking for places to go. 2 will peel off towards that southern entrance again, there towards the east. And meanwhile, the rest will retreat. And the pilgrims, this must be so annoying for Anotand. The fact that this reminds me of trade on Hill and Dale. I'm sure you remember, when it was essentially a gamble as to whether the traders would go in front of the hill or behind it along the back line. Oh god, bad memories, bad memories.
No, both of these guys may be getting some traumatic flashbacks from previous sets that they've played, because oh my goodness, this feels like one of those where you look away for a second and all of your villagers are absolutely cooked. But look at that Seagate Castle, it is gone. Great Bombard also standing there at the back, about to get picked off by these Schlachters. And just as I said, Wham must be feeling pretty good about this. Anotand says, actually, have you met Schlachter? I just want to remind you of why KT in the late game is such a dominant force. And he picks off yet another load of villagers. And it's just a constant back and forth of Schlachter against the world.
Indeed, KT. Many people laugh at their strength, and rightfully so. In the early game, they definitely take some time to get going, but Imperial Age is still somewhere they feel very comfortable playing, especially when they have access to the Schlatter. Previously, even today, still one of the best cavalry units in the late game. Not the best anymore, but still up there without a doubt, even against the #1 anti-cavalry civilization in the form of the Ottomans here. They do very well indeed. You have to be so careful though. One wrong move and they can get swallowed up whole by the Janissaries. So Anotand's going to keep playing the flanks here, looking for angles of attack, knowing that he just cannot ever really directly address Wham's army, not without having picked it apart bit by bit systematically beforehand. He's gonna make another attempt here. Incendiary arrows is in, no silk bowstrings yet. He finds the Janissary mass, but more importantly, he finds the flanking Sipahi mass besides this, and the Shlata are nowhere near to be seen. Looks like the Sipahi are struggling to break through. A few Shlata hold the line there for now, allowing most of the archer mass to escape. But there's so many Sipahi here, and the Trebs, the 3 expensive Trebs behind this, are next on the chopping block after this backline is cleared. More and more Shlata join the fray to hold the advance here from Wham, who now looks to push under the keep, and massive buffs to Anotand's army underneath this keep. Additional armor, additional range on his units, and that seems to be enough because the Sipahi have fallen, and now the archers get their chance towards this backline of Janissaries, and so many of them for Wham. But the Mangonels, as well as the Great Bombard, is in position still, and Anotand has to be so careful how he takes these shots, but not a lot of dodging going on, so plenty of archers are falling, and the Janissaries hold the line as they keep pushing forward. Now the keep itself is under threat.
Now Wham keeps pushing in under this keep into a very buffed army, and it feels every single time, it feels like he overextends just a little bit as these expensive Janissaries are falling like flies against all of this the moment they step in under. Wham feeling a little bit confident in pushing here, but it is so risky. The Schlachtas, they are starting to make a difference, and all of a sudden the military numbers are equalized. And Wham, he's struggling with the villages right now. That is half the villages of his opponent. It doesn't feel like he is going to be in a position to get this back at any point now. This is just a constant destruction of the military of Anotand, and Anotand replenishing it again and again and again. Wham sacrificed, I think, just a little bit too much.
Yes, you wanted to get that mythical Ottoman death ball going with a majority of military population, which sure is nigh unstoppable, but still KT is not to be underestimated at this stage of the game, especially underneath those keeps. They love fighting beneath them. The buffs are immense, and you can see it manifest there in the fight, and the keeps themselves are so durable even against great bombards. So much HP on them, which makes it hard to break. And now the Shlata find a connection on the Janissaries. Not the fight they want to take, but backed up by archers, they certainly don't mind. And there's no frontline here for Wham. His economic sacrifice may have cost him too dearly here, as the bombard itself might be looking to fall very soon, as more and more Shlata join here at the front. Anotand's food eco, though, cannot keep up with his production, and he seems to struggle to remass fully. Sipahi from the flank look to distract some of the Shlata here and break some of these archers, but just look at the Janissary count, down from 60, 70 even, now to just 20. The bombards as well, down to only 1, Sipahi as well, not many on the field. The military schools will keep working overtime, but remember, there is no Istanbul Observatory. They are only half as effective as they could be.
Now these archers, they are kiting backwards to try and take these Sipahis down, and they will. That's the thing about getting these Sipahis to die. They're not going to come back, not at the same speed he needs them to. And now, under 100 supply, Wham is starting to sing a completely different song. And it's a song of a very poor man whose army, whose everything is just starving at the back there. Another great bombard being built, but these great bombards have been torn apart the whole time. Anotand, he's just able to constantly remake all these Schlachtas, and even though he's chopped out a significant portion of wood from this map, the archer mass stays strong. He is just replenishing every moment he gets. Now, with this, it feels like Knights Templar has the momentum to start taking down these heaps and buildings that Wham has spread all around the map.
Furthermore, Anotand once again remassed almost 200 pulp, whereas Wham is only half. Even villages are migrating to the center, and what kept Wham in this game for so very long, this death grip on this center, on this sacred site, the entry to Anotand's base. He has held this position for over 40 minutes at this point, but still, now it's slowly falling apart for him. His infrastructure is crumbling. The Seagate Castle is long gone. Now the production here in the center is also under threat. A good remass still, however. Plenty of Janissaries and Sipahi, as well as another great bombard with a second on the way. But the economy is a real struggle here for Wham. Just look at the income difference. Anotand has more food income alone than the entirety of Wham's income combined, and that is normally a position you cannot win from.
Now, with Wham playing his heart out here, after doing the most cheesiest of cheeses in the previous game, this Ottoman death push just did not hold up. Anotand showing us that Knights Templar is still great on land and takes game number 2, bringing us to our 1-1 in this set.
If I was a betting man, I would have lost all my money on this game.
Same. I feel like we called it to one side, then the other side, then the one side. It was crazy. A beautiful back and forth here, and Anotand looking amazing coming out of this.
This kind of a win in this type of series is the advantage from this cannot be understated. Losing the opening map never feels good, as that's typically a neutral ground. Normally matchups are very even. It's either two really good civs or two weaker civs, or a weak civ against a strong civ, which then you don't mind as much losing it. But in this position, winning with, well, most people would agree it is the best civilization in the game, and Wham losing with this up against one of probably the worst on land, at least historically. Of course, there's many factors at play here, but this is not a loss you want to take. And this ties up the series, and it takes the draft into very interesting perspectives from here on out, because looking forward to this next one, we have HRE up against Macedonian. But before we speak up about that, just a moment of appreciation for this game, because the amount of pressure Anotand was under, and to come out on top here with KT, this achievement cannot be understated.
KT definitely showed us a little bit of a different head on this land map, and I think games like these inspire a lot of what we see out there on the ranked pool meta as well. So Anotand definitely inspiring a whole generation here of KT players with that sneaky little 2TC and holding it down for as long as it's needed. Now guys, with the upcoming game, we have HRE making its way through, and now that we see Anotand picking this as well, I'm excited to see what he pulls out here, because him and Beastie are the main ones who still play a little bit of that HRE. Now, considering this draft is massive and they still need to play, it's a best of 7, right? So this is not something that you just pull out any civilization for. HRE might not have been his prior pick, but it's definitely up there. Make sure that Frisian Marshes is just under control. Now, Sengoku being sniped, that makes a lot of sense. We saw what Sengoku can do on this map. And Wham, him getting the Macedonians, he must be a very happy camper.
And what an exciting matchup. One I don't think I have seen yet. I don't know if you have, Whamman, but I mean, Macedonian, we saw a fair bit of them by now. They have made their presence known in the meta and look almost nigh unstoppable, frankly. So few civilizations can actually hold a candle to them, and Frisian is a great map for them indeed. Historically, though, there was a time I remember quite clearly, many years ago, where HRE was virtually unbeatable here on Frisian. Now, gone are those days, long ago indeed, but maybe it's going to be another blast to the past here, and HRE can deliver Anotand the win that he needs again once more, but he's going to have to fight against a player of Wham's caliber on the Macedonians.
I was about to say, okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed, because that is a time of the past. But what is new about this meta, though, is that both these civilizations aren't afraid to go for some Dark Age plays. Anotand, it looks like his Dark Age play will include playing it safe and going for a dock here. So usually the HRE, we've seen them time and time again on this map where they just go for the barracks opening and shut down anything their opponent can do. But Wham, he's got a civilization that handles that pretty well. He's not going for anything crazy though. He's just going straight for the gold, going for a normal age up, because he knows what Macedonians can do is all about hitting that feudal and making something matter with it.
Well, I'm opting again, this time, as we saw Macedonians do before, to go for a dockless opening here, realizing the threat of the potential for HRE strength in the Dark Age, which even today is definitely way up there. The economy with this prelate early on, as well as the speed of the spearmen, means not many civs are able to contest them effectively, and Macedonians certainly not one of them, due to their difficulty in going for any kind of racks opening here. So Wham is just going to go for the quick age up, and likely going to go for a slower one to add some docks whilst he's aging up, or we might see a similar playstyle to what he did against Beastie, and go for those horsemen very early on to start putting pressure on this economic investment from Anotand.
Now, getting into a position where Wham is the one raiding everywhere, that's where the difference is going to come in. HRE does well when they are being given a bit of breathing room. Macedonians doesn't give you that breathing room because of that constant aggression early on. Now, I'm a little bit worried for HRE's ability to actually withstand this and be able to get to a point where they can contest something like that Imperial Hippodrome, as we see the most standard age up coming on out. Now, Anotand, he's not looking at aging up yet. He's completely focused on getting more docks. We see the villager already moving towards that second pond as well. And this could be the most expensive pond of his life.
Indeed, it could be. Because with the Hippodrome coming up already, soon enough there's going to be a very real and plausible threat on the field with so many horsemen running around causing havoc. We've seen how Wham was able to pick apart Beastie with the strategy, and that was the Delhi. In theory, they should be even better at holding that sort of position than the HRE. So we're going to see how Anotand looks to deal with it. He does have the faster spearman and the nice injection in early economy with the Prelate and potentially the Aachen Chapel. But I do know Anotand to be a minework enjoyer every now and then.
Now, the might work makes a lot of sense in a lot of these matchups, especially when you're up against someone who is constantly just going to go and try to deny you just capitalizing on a nice little Aachen Chapel. But you have to keep in mind, the Aachen Chapel is also really good because usually you get a secondary resource in all of this. So in this matchup, that's not really what you get. You can get an Aachen right against the wood, which means that your wood line is nice and inspired. You're going to get a lot of value from there. But oh my goodness, Anotand is not even getting close to clicking anywhere of an age up, but he's going straight into being raided by horsemen before even starting that age up. This, I don't know what Anotand's cooking, but I'm not sure if Wham is having any of it.
Yeah, once again, so many dogs. Exactly the way Beastie had begun. He's looking to get up as many of them as he possibly can to spiral that economy, hopefully out of control. But he's barely going to have the gold needed to age up before that first horseman gets there, as he already is on his way. Actually, the horseman looks to go for the docks this time instead of on the gold. Does discover something there. It's going to be the villager. Oh, that's actually the scout. So the horseman actually went for the scout from Anotand instead.
Now that horse is making his way all the way through. Anotand's still not even thinking about feudal just yet, but that second prelate is being made, which tells me the Mindwar Palace is going to be following suit pretty quickly. This is an interesting one. I'm not sure what Anotand's response here can even be. The horse is going straight there for the dock. He's going for the 2 spears, and this is delaying his age up even more. That secondary spear being queued up. This man, he wants to save the dock. But at what cost? We see finally the ships dropping off the food needed. And Anotand is ready to click up. And he goes for the mine work. Very responsible choice here. Just ensuring that with those 2 prelates, he's going to be able to inspire most of the villagers anyway. Feeling like this is worth it for those very unique upgrades.
And the mine work might work potentially when those upgrades do come in, because similarly, just like the Macedonian dynasty have access to +2 damage courtesy of the Hippodrome horsemen, well, HRE get it too, all pikes, and not only on their horsemen, but also on the spears as well from that minework palace. Of course, once the silver starts rolling in and the extra HP gets added into the equation, then, well, of course, Wham's horsemen will undoubtedly be better, but it will be a little while until then, and all pikes can come in very quickly. Already spears on the field here from Anotand, so he's going to use those as an early saving grace here. And so far, definitely good value gained from them. Not a single fishing ship has went down yet.
Those fishing boats may be alive, but now we're getting to a point where those little spearmen he's got, those are little Dark Age ones, so they're not going to be able to contest these or run fast enough to push them off every single time. So the fishermen fish fresh fishes, as I got this tongue twister now. Fishermen fish fresh fishes, but fishermen which fish fresh fishes get poked by horsemen. Exactly. So what's happening right here is this poor man is getting poked non-stop. But they have the mobility. They are going to be able to run around and do this right.
Important to keep in mind, I mean, there's no knights at this stage, of course, but when the HRE spearmen are charging, they are actually faster than knights. I think maybe they're the same speed as horsemen, or very close to. I'm not quite sure. We can have a look when the engagement comes again, but horsemen are, of course, 1.88, and I wonder what the charge is when the HRE spearmen do it. We can have a look when it happens again. Very, very curious, but that's a significant detail, and oftentimes that makes a big difference between something like Royal Knights getting away on 1 HP or just dying. And it can really decide games. That move speed is not to be underestimated, and it can really allow Anotand a fighting chance in this feudal age. But the Bogmather are now also about to join the fray, one already on the field. This composition is going to make things way trickier for Anotand, as he has the food he needs here, as well as the res to make a transition, but he just wants to get castle ASAP.
Getting castle is a pretty good choice, I would say, if you have the units to support this. But getting a Burgrave out here against all these horses, I cannot wait to see what this turns into. Like you said, that charge, it's going to go down nicely. But with all of this, we see that safe tower now coming on up. The problem with this safe tower, it can only house 5 villagers. And Anotand, he's got a lot more out there. Now he tries to rush it up. He sees the horses arriving. The spearmen are in position, and the prelate is ready to heal anyone that dares get hurt.
Yeah, so this timing is pretty crucial here, because the tower is up, but the Bogmather are now about to arrive to that gold, and that's going to make things way trickier here for Anotand, who is still struggling to actually find that gold. And look under that TC. This village is starting to sit idly. The sheep are running out as well. And it's not like the fishing is very safe. I did theorize that this is the way here for HRE. This has to be your one hope of getting something done in this matchup. It's going to be the Burgrave. And the Burgrave can work miracles for the HRE, as we have seen time and time again recently, since that buff where units with the Burgrave now have extra charge damage on their melee infantry, and it's a big amount of charge damage indeed.
Now, the Burgrave, the fact that it's being built with 17 just tells you exactly what you need to know. He is ready for this castle type of engagement, and oh my goodness, are we as well. +1 range defense coming on in, and this makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that you do not lose a lot of armor to these archers, that as they are firing away at these poor little fishing ships who are just trying to do their jobs. But the thing is, Anotand's food is going to stop coming in. He has the tower out there to defend his wood villages, but everything else is ripe for the taking. Now, everything moving out to the other side of the map, but the horses, they might have something to say about that. And say what you want about this burger, it's idle.
Yeah, the food is a real problem, and Wham's horseman is going to make sure that it continues to be a problem. They're going to be a big distraction point here for Anotand, who just can't actually really get the numbers needed to pose a big threat here. Keep in mind, Golden Horn Tower as well for Macedonians. It's not like they're still in immediate danger after reaching Castle Age until the upgrades come in. No, if that Golden Horn Tower comes up, this Burgrave is dead in the water. If it even gets to a position where it's a threat, apparently, because, well, we see just the military mass from Anotand, from Wham here is still ever present, and with Anotand having such limited access to food, it's looking pretty dire as docks are starting to fall alongside the fishing ships.
Now, with these men-at-arms, you're just waiting for a miracle to happen, but no miracles will be arriving today. These guys are just getting picked off one by one as they're stepping out of their comfort zone, I would say here. The boys chasing now. You can see those charges coming on in. But The food is still the issue here, our limiting factor, and now a little wheelbarrow coming on in. And when I say this, I swing my hand like, oh goody, he's got a plan. The villagers are going to run fast and get away when those horses start to land, and that's the only plan Anotand has right now. Plus 2 range defense coming on in, but the villagers, they're building the Golden Horn Tower, and there's a lot of them. This speaks volumes to how important this timing is and how quickly Anotand's about to miss this.
Golden Tower being rushed up pretty quickly here with 23 villagers not wanting to pose any risk to himself, Wham has. Making sure it goes up, and there's plenty of men-at-arms, and they are scary indeed, but with the Golden Horn Tower going up, it's not much of a threat. And this was kind of the timing here for Anotand. He had to get a lot of damage done here, and that window has closed. It's now just a bunch of men-at-arms, and sure, they are very strong men-at-arms actually, really potent indeed, but up against Ridari, I'm not a believer.
Now, Ridari, of course, just like knights, they don't directly counter a men-at-arm, but oh my goodness, when that charge hits one, you can break that shield in half pretty quickly. Now, Anotand, he is still doubling down on all these men-at-arms, but when we look at the position of that Golden Horn Tower, it is covering every bit of his economy that needs to be taken into consideration now, even as a backup tree back there to go and chop wood if ever needed. But the men-at-arm numbers are still quite scary. He's getting a handful of Ridari now. The men-at-arms, they are wasting their time chasing around, and this is exactly what Wham wants. He wants this to keep not being a problem for him in his base. And with all of this, Anotand is trying to pick up some relics. He's got one, another one moving forward, but there's this round. The horses just delete that poor prelate. He will not be saying any more prayers today.
It's worth noting that for those who do not believe, knights do typically counter men-at-arms. However, these men-at-arms actually directly counter knights. Now, Ridari, of course, might be the exception to that rule, but the mass is a real problem. Now, the Ridari will undoubtedly be way stronger, but they need a lot of upgrades for that to be the case. This has been tested. These men-at-arms shred through regular knights, and they'll probably deal with Ridari quite well in small numbers initially, until the upgrades come in, and it'll be a little while till that happens. Of course, crossbows is an even bigger concern for Anotand, as they will also be coming in for free for Wham from that Golden Horn Tower in batches of 3. But Anotand, behind this, he hasn't actually managed to secure as many relics as you would hope in his position, right? He was very focused on trying to place these men-at-arms, finding the damage, and also reconsolidating his docks to the point where only his initial safe relic has been secured, despite having had a few prelates on the field to do so. It's just tough to find the space to do it as well behind all of this.
Now, with Wham being the one keeping Anotand busy, Anotand has chased him around long enough and decides he needs to go and make a plan. Land with some kind of attack. I say that, but the moment I do, I curse him. And guys, I'm so sorry for cursing this poor boy. He is now pulling back yet again to keep chasing behind these horses, but it just doesn't feel like he's counted the legs. You know what you count, Myriad. Every single time you want to count the legs to make sure you can outrun them. And this, the leg math never fails. You can see the horses just keep forcing these units to run around in circles. He does pick up yet another relic, but it does look like it's going to get sniped. One of the Ridaris taking quite a bit of damage here, but the others doing some damage themselves. A few men-at-arms in a little bit of an awkward position here as they are just running back. And this is exactly what's going to keep happening to these groups. That mobility, the leg math will always hold up. The mobility will win.
It's true. Now with the reconvergence of these new men-at-arms, you can see the charge damage coming through, dealing quite good chunks indeed on those Ridari's health, but they can only chase so far before needing to go back, less losing all of their lives later on. As Wham continues to raid with the Hippodrome champions, all in a group of their own. Looks like there's a bit of elitism going on there, not wanting to mix with the regular units for now. As Wham just keeps massing Ridari. And Anotand recognizes this. He's going to start to switch back into the spears now, but that just opens the way for even more Bugmather later on. Still, no further relics secured here by Anotand. Food income, though, is looking very healthy for him indeed. He might already have some farms going up. Oh, it was actually just the deer.
Now, the villagers, they are thinking about their life here, running around for days. But the prelate is here to heal. He's like, you're gonna have to go through my villages first. They're fighting back, but the men-at-arms are here to back them up. And wham, he's killed 12. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these were ships, sure, but he's been doing a lot of good damage. And especially with not having that relic boost that HRE has, it does still feel pretty scary, but all of a sudden, the men-at-arms are starting to do a little bit of work. Radari starting to fall a little bit harder every single time. These champions, though, they are just doing their own thing. And that's the beauty of the champions. Buffing each other, buffing everything around them, and holding it all by themselves while being all for free.
Yeah, this is another case here for Macedonians, right? The economy is dreadful. There's no denying it. They have zero economic bonuses whatsoever outside of the silver and the war camp. So you just have to bide your time and allow your superior army to bear fruit. Superior, though, only when the count gets to it, because with this little flank by Anotand, he's putting a lot of damage on the Redari, but they are Redari at the end of the day, so it does not matter. And a great effort by Anotand here. However, not quite enough to break the back of Macedonians, and wham, secures a lead once again in this set, now up 2-1.
HRE not looking like they're going to be out here too strong anytime soon. These boys not holding the name up high as they used to be. And Anotand, he has to replot for the next game, but wham, now up 2-1. And after his last victory, I feel like this man is feeling ready for anything that Anotand can throw his way. But keep in mind, Anotand is choosing this next map. Let's see what he got.
It's going to be Dry Arabia as the map of choice here for Anotand. So looking to rely again on just hopefully outplaying his opponent on quite a standard map here. And we have the civilizations chosen as well. It's going to be China in here for Anotand. And wham, meanwhile, is going to have access to the Golden Horde. And the Golden Horde, one of those civilizations that once you let them have just a little bit of breathing room, they can run away with it pretty scarily fast. China, meanwhile, on the other hand, just a powerhouse even today. Good in every age, on every map, virtually every situation.
Now, when we take a look at these snipes, though, I have big questions. Why are you letting poor China get onto this map? But this could be a normal choice. You know, Wham, he showed us he doesn't mind playing against a little bit of China. And getting the Golden Horde himself, excited to see what this looks like on the map. But banning out Mongols in any case, I am shocked. I understand that, of course, if your opponent hands you the Golden Horde, Mongols is going to make quick work of them with a little bit of a Dark Age rush. And if your ooze spawns just a little bit too far, things get a little bit hairier for you. Now, Golden Horde against China, it's not really something that we've seen too much of, but we've seen Golden Horde, once they get an upgrade or two, things spiral out of control. China, on the other hand, they do that similarly. China has always been known as a very late-game civilization, something that really expands and blows up the later this goes. So Golden Horde, we'll see how that late game plays out, especially on Dry Arabia, because between these two, after watching that Hill and Dale, I'm ready for another 40-minute game. I know production isn't. Yeah, I'm looking at the time. I'm looking at my time as well, because it might be a long one, but I'm here for it, and I'm so ready. And I know Twitch chat, you guys all have work tomorrow, but I know every one of you is going to wait here until 2 a.m. when we finish, after these guys battle it out in the next 40-minute game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one here, because we mentioned about the Mongols snipe out as opposed to China. There's probably some phase around the Dark Age, like you mentioned here, for Wham. As both Rus even and Golden Horde. Rus do need those cabins as well. In my opinion, I don't think Golden Horde are as weak to Dark Age pressure as people think. Honestly, I think they don't even care if they lose their Uvu in the Dark Age half the time. But the problem with Mongols is that they actively get rewarded for touching it, right? The bounty, the raiding bounty is significant, and they can run away with a little bit of tempo very quickly. In that feudal age, they can play so aggressively, which Golden Horde can struggle initially perhaps to match, so Wham would rather not face it. China, however, China is slow, right? China, although they age up quick, they need a lot of officials before they can get anything done, really. And any time that is bought is good for Golden Horde, for them to get to that castle age and get that Muscovy Yasa going, because with that armor and those Torguds, they just don't die.
Now, that's usually the issue. With all that longevity in their bloodlines, we are going to go see how this looks on Dry Arabia. Ladies and gents, look at that far away. Ooh, just something that's ripe for a early aggression. And that's the beauty of China. There's no early aggression. We just have patience and age ups.
Wham! As the Golden Horde in the color purple, facing Anotand's yellow Chinese on the classiest of all maps, Dry Arabia. And I'm very glad Anotand didn't try for any sort of Dark Age shenanigans here. I know there's a temptation, Twitch chat if you're listening. Okay, maybe it's fine to Dark Age rush Golden Horde, but don't overcommit to it, please, because it's kind of good for them if you do.
Now, China, this is the beauty of the early game here. Both of these civilizations, absolutely nothing happens in the Dark Age. So why don't we just take a moment and look at these glorious spawns that were given to us by the gods called Relic. And let's go take a quick look. Backwards gold. Love that. That's wonderful. That villager snacking on the sheep there as well instead of the gold. But of course, this is a timing that I don't know of, because if I try to learn the Golden Horde, I guess I would just lose my mind. And this feels like a pretty great spot to easily get a wall up and have a safe economy. But that's a pretty barren backline of nothingness. Now, on the other side, though, Mr. Anotand, he's got that back gold, or he's got a side gold with a nice little back deer that will be easy to snack on when needed, which means that Mr. Anotand is not even going to be needing to think about something like Pro Scouts when he can just secure this with one little tower when the food starts to run low. Now, both of his deer packs are pretty close to him, so he also just needs to get control of this, because, of course, China, hungry civilization, and this is something that can quickly catch up if the Golden Horde gets control.
Speaking of control, the Imperial Academy is definitely going to give Anotand plenty of control over his economy early on, because those officials are not to be underestimated. What has made China so potent for so very, very long, that influx of passive gold from the very beginning of the game endlessly, on top of just manufacturing 20% extra resources out of nowhere, with that supervision, is definitely a useful bonus, and they're going to look to utilize it. The Khan and Torguds is on the menu for Wham. Discount on all Torguds trained from the Golden Tent with that age up, and that's going to allow Wham to mass them pretty quickly. And the Torgud is a heavy cavalry unit in the feudal age, very similar to the Keshik in terms of design, but the stats are very different indeed. They have pretty respectable charge damage, but very weak damage. However, they have a massive amount of health. They are very tanky indeed, making for an excellent frontline and sturdy raiding force.
Now, from this age up, we usually have a little bit of time, and this is the great part about this Golden Horde. The age up takes a while, and I feel like this is the biggest necessity at this stage of the game. Of course, because the Khan and the Torguds, they are sometimes a little bit too good for others to handle. I was working on that one for a whole 3 seconds, but with it only landing in 30 seconds, he's going to need a little bit of time before they arrive. And it gives Anotand that moment to reflect and say, hey, do I have the potential to go Pro Scouts anyway? Because right now I see a lot of resources stacking up for him. And never mind. He's going for the stable. Myriad, he's going for the stable. Is this just horsemen?
And he has the time. He has the time to do so. Wait, what? Huh? What is this?
This is a stable.
What am I
Myriad.
seeing,
Actually,
Whammon?
that is one villager on top of a deer pack here, trying to build a stable. And right next to the stable, we see a yellow scout. Now, right on top there, we see a purple scout making his way through, just smacking away at the scout, daring to stare at the villager. I hope you understand now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a ripe place for a tower, that's for sure. But, I mean, I thought typically you would want to start with the tower as opposed to a stable that you can't actually produce from because, of course, Golden Horde can only double produce, and they do, in fact, pay double the price as you'd expect. So, very hard to afford anything from a stable straight away here. And, yeah, I think a bit rough for Wham. I definitely would have preferred the tower here instead of the stable, that's for sure. But now bites the bullet for it. Villager, no, he will fall. He even stops in his tracks and accepts his fate just at the end there. He made peace with his god and has now fallen.
Do you think this was a misclick, or do you think this was an active choice from Wham?
I think he definitely wanted to place a tower there, and that way the stable is underneath the influence. But I don't know if he saw the scout from Anotand there first, that, gave away this play fully. But he probably didn't expect Horsemen supervised out so early straight away, right? He probably thought Anotand might go for Pro Scout straight away to use the fact that Golden Horde ages up so slowly. It means that China can get away with Pro Scout straight away, unlike in other matchups. But yeah, it definitely bites him in the behind now.
Now, with all of these scouts just bringing the food, this man is not in a position to contest it just yet. But that second deer pack, and this is usually the slippery slope people get stuck on. If you go for the safe deer pack first, you are most likely getting your deer there. But you're not always going to have access to the next pile of them. Now, this horseman and scout, they are doing work. Anotand being everywhere, but there is a little Keshik waiting to pay a visit, and the spearman is standing at the ready to shut down any of this Khan shenanigans that he's plotting out. Anotand, though, heavily invested into these spears, and that's all he needs right now, because Wham, he's fully committed to this horse army.
So far, nothing but cavalry in production here for Wham, and that's going to do good to drag Anotand around the map and maybe find openings, but ultimately these spears can put on a lot of hurt once they cross the map towards Wham's side of the base. There's Uvu's exposed, there's gold exposed. Everything can be nabbed up here by Anotand if Wham is not careful, and these are not French knights. These guys don't heal. So not only are they at a stat disadvantage, but on top of it they don't heal, so it's going to be pretty tough to find favorable engagements against these spears.
Now, with this group of spears, you need a reaction. Right now, he doesn't have a reaction in mind. And that might just become a little bit of an issue with the food being almost unlimited by this point. Now, unfortunately for him, this is something that is slowly gonna turn into an archer mass. But by the time it does, Anotand is already gonna be ready with the number of horses that he needs.
Archers now in production for Wham, and yeah, as we thought, Anotand trying to abuse the fact that there's nothing but cavalry so far from Anotand and just goes to torch directly. Undermesh timing is here as well. This could be quite big. It is a fortified outpost, however. This is way tankier than a regular outpost. Costs a premium as well. But I don't know if Anotand actually has the burn power here, not with the Keshiks and Torguds now to meet this front line as well. The horsemen, there's a few on the field, but I'm not sure it's enough. Just two archers here actually doing so much work against these spears, and I don't think Anotand has enough for this. He's going to cost him a lot. He does have the favorable composition for such a small engagement, so the archers will not last long, and the Keshiks and Torguds have to be very careful about where and how they engage, but they can keep cutting reinforcements if they so choose. Two additional Torguds join the fray. Another archer about to pop out just now. And looks like the tower did get repaired quite a bit, but is it enough here for Wham?
This is the power of the Wham Tower. Wham showing us time and time again how important it is to keep your tower alive. This has lasted days now, and Wham is the champion of the towers. Now, with all of this horse mass, he's going to be able to handle spears in these small numbers pretty easily, but Anotand does have a lot more where that comes from, so he does need to be careful, but he does take the trade here. Keshiks will be able to heal themselves up a little bit. Wham, though, he is going to be struggling for food eventually if he keeps losing these expensive units to some spears. But that tower, beautifully placed and kept alive, ensuring that the villagers will still snack on those deer for as long as they need to.
This has all been a ploy by Anotand though. A lot has been sacrificed, but he finds the space he needs for a very timely age up here. Meanwhile, Wham is so astronomically far away from an age up. Not only in terms of resources, but the time it would take to reach the age up. That is actually a little bit concerning. There's plenty military presence, however. Most of it is heavy cavalry, so even if Anotand goes into knights here, he's going to be hard pressed to find some damage for a little while. But now look at this. Greedy goblin is even stealing Wham's deer.
Now, when I see a man on my side, on my deer, I start to feel a little bit of pressure here, but absolutely no pressure. Anotand feels I am making lances, so you may feel all you want. I've got the food, I've got the units, and you are about to get raided. Now, Anotand, he does do a little bit more with those spears as well. The horses, though, goes right inside, but they are just too tanky and will not go down either. The spearmen in a perfect position to defend these pro scouts. And it's not just about getting the food to your side, because sure, the deer carcasses will be worth so much less when they arrive. It's about denying the Golden Horde from getting that tempo.
Speaking of tempo, wow, I'm actually finding quite a nice turnaround time for this age up, but again, suffers idle time on the wood line and costs him a villager now as well. Actually, no, that's the villager from earlier, in the beginning of the game. Wham finding his own raid, 2 Torguds, just wreaking havoc on the gold when Anotand needs it most. Great idle time cost here. Even the official might be in danger, but the damage is not there from the Torguds. Very low damage on these units, but look how sturdy they are, even against the knight and underneath that cannon, the arrow slit, well not arrow slit, hand cannon slit emplacement from the TC. They do quite well.
Now, into this point, you get your Muscovy Yasak, right? But Anotand is the one with the raiding units and the numbers, the army numbers. So does Wham have an ability to survive this type of pressure once it starts pouring in? Because we see a handful of archers in here too. And sure, with the units Wham has right now, the Keshiks, they do act as those pseudo-knights, so they should be able to put a proper decent fight initially. But the lance and numbers are increasing, and the food for Anotand is not looking like it's running out anytime soon.
Behind this though for Wham, there's a lack of stockyards, right? That's normally one of the big strengths here for Golden Horde. Such potent food income for a great investment that can all be very safe underneath a TC or some outpost, but Wham for now has none unless there's any underneath that outpost, and you can see how his food income is suffering as a result of this. And already plenty of lancers on the field here for Anotand. He's looking for blood, and funny enough, it kind of looks like Wham pretty much abandoned his main base. He's fully lent towards that southern side outside of these wood gatherers, and they will pay the price for it.
Now, with these Keshiks just sliding into all the resource lines, as I'll call them here, we do see the army looking a little bit feisty. This is one of those weird positions you get into where you've just invested into castle, but you're not quite there yet. Your upgrades aren't there, but your opponent, he's very happily ready to take on some of these fights. Wham now, he's quickly going to be trying to get up these upgrades. Villagers are going to need to pull back, and this little tower here, it just doesn't feel like it's the refuge he needs against this huge mass of spears and lances. Oh, look at those lances. Idling out a TC here too. Disgusting. They are not taking a grain of damage. The +1 ranged armor is really doing the work.
Now finally has the age up finished here for Wham, but the timing might not be there as the villagers look to seek shelter in the outpost, but so many of them fall because there's no more space to garrison, so they are forced to fend for themselves. The entirety of Wham's food income is based on these berries here, which are now also gone from under his control. Mass spears and lances from Anotand, now with crossbows joining the fray as well, is doing immense work for him in this situation. There's just not enough here for Wham. The extra armor on these heavily armored cavalry is very useful indeed, but no amount of armor is gonna save you from the bonus damage that spearmen do against them, and Anotand is here to show it for sure. Underneath the golden tent and the TC, the fighting continues, and Wham has done a great job of sustaining most of them. Has heavy cav mass alive, but for how long? Because Anotand shows no fear.
No fear when Anotand is near. All of these units are ready to push in under, and even if he loses this whole army, there's more coming. The poor man, Wham, does not get a second of breathing time, and that 40-minute game I had cursed to being where we are right now. A nice little under 20-minute game to ensure that they can go to map number 5, Anotand, making sure that the series is going to be 2-2. Now, of course, you can't count anyone out, but there's a reason we see China banned so often, and Anotand is showing us exactly why, being very confident up against this Golden Horde.
Indeed, Golden Horde needing so much time to come online, and that's typically more time than China allows you, who are so quick with their turnaround times in that castle age, with their explosive economy. Golden Horde is just way too, well, it moves at a snail's pace compared to China, doesn't it? And we can see the result of that here.
Now, when I get into a spot like this, I have to ask myself, okay, I just got rid of Golden Horde, which is a little bit of a powerhouse on other maps as well. And it feels like Anotand read this perfectly. That's the problem with a lot of these new civilizations. We don't really know where they match up against one another. But Anotand, he knew exactly where to hit, and he hit it perfectly. So guys, let's go see what Wham decided to pick as the next map. Because now this man is going to have to pull out all the stops yet again to do this just right. And we do see it being Kawasan. And I am surprised to see that we have a Lancaster pick, but also a snipe there. And then a Delhi pick to follow that up with. Take a second. I just want to look at this draft. What did he have to choose from? He had the Mongols, Delhi, French, and Lancaster, and Sengoku. And he opts for Lancaster and Delhi. Myriad, you're the pro here. Talk me through it. What happened?
Well, Delhi historically is not bad here at all, honestly. They're okay. It's like a Frisian situation, you know? It's like, it'll survive. It'll do. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's a top pick. I mean, I guess Anotand feels more comfortable with the Delhi here against something like Tughlaq, which is probably what he expected he'd have to face. Then with something like the Mongols, let's say, you know, we already saw that didn't go very well up against Papipo. And it'll probably go pretty similar here. I mean, it's just very tough to deal with eco. But Delhi, they have a bit more of a fighting chance, I would say, up against Tughlaq, right? So we can see how that goes. It's variant against the original here to determine it all in game number 5.
And that's usually the key here. We are a little bit more familiar with some of these older civilizations, but the Tughlaq, we've seen enough of it out on to Kawasan. Kawasan, it's shown us time and time again that Tughlaq, you cannot just let it run free. But old versus new, I'm so excited to see the OG going up against their baby brother. And when I say baby brother, it's the elephant brother. It's the brother that people are absolutely fearing here. But I can understand why I didn't want this to be Zushi. When you're up against Zushi, that power of the meditation garden on this map is so significant that you do have to invest that Dark Age presence onto the map to shut it down. And this is not something you want to do to set yourself a little bit behind this too. So absolutely an understandable snipe system that these two have made for each other. Now, I'm wondering how this plays out in feudal. So both of these civilizations, with Tughlaq having a little bit of the edge when it comes to picking it on this map, how does Delhi play it out against their big brother or their baby brother civilization in front of us? Do you think this is more where you do try to win the water quickly, secure it? Or is this where you let the landmass take over and shut down the Tughlaq economy?
Actually very tricky, I think, for Delhi, because on water, I think you're just at a sheer disadvantage here. Tughlaq's economy early on is just better. than Delhi's because of the elephant economics. They should be able to afford more ships, so that's a struggle. On land, however, that's interesting because we know the Tughlaq army is very strong and very potent indeed, but Delhi's also pretty good. Also pretty good for sure, especially when you get 10 scholars in there suddenly making everything unkillable against 5 healer elephants. That should be pretty interesting. Yeah, it's a tough one. I really don't know how this can be handled. I mean, against Tughlaq, oftentimes the best choice is to try to get Castlage quite quickly, because crossbowmen just absolutely butcher the healer elephants. But getting to Castlage safely against Tughlaq is very difficult, as we have seen many times. That has been the downfall of several players.
Now, when I see these early game plays, I want to ask myself, is it better to just go for a standard opening, or do I need to fight the water? But players, time and time again, they always say the same thing. You need the water! And that's exactly what Anotand is going to go for here. Wham, on the other hand, we do see his... Oh, we see a lot of purple dots moving around, and that villager took a little bit of a detour, going to dock the same lake. What a sneaky little boy. That. And he knows he did this on purpose. Myriad, this man, he's ready for it. He wants to fight this out. But remember what I said earlier at the cast, Myriad? We had a discussion here where you were like, oh yeah, the fishing boats, they're not going to be doing too much action in the early game. But is this the one instance where we might get some fishing boats against fishing boats?
That... If it all comes down to fishing ships, fighting fishing ships in game number 5 of the final of this qualifier, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, how unhinged can it really get when we just see fishing ships tickling each other as they get endlessly, passively healed constantly? It can't culminate in this, not like this.
This is peak Age of Empires 4 gameplay, guys. This is what you signed up for. And unfortunately for you guys, you might be thinking, oh, this is not going to last too long. We're not going to be stuck here in the feudal. But, ladies and gentlemen, there's a second dock coming for Mr. Wham here. And these fishing boats, they're gathering right next to each other, looking at each other menacingly and just wondering who is going to be the first one to give in and attack. Wheelbarrow coming in for Anotand, though, because for Delhi, this is free. Now, we do see the fishing boat stepping a little bit further out. Now, he does need to be careful here. I was about to say, he needs to be careful here. He's taking a few shots, but for some reason, both of them just decide, we're just fishing. It is what it is. Fish time, baby. But the fishing boats are coming out significantly faster here for Mr. Anotand.
Yeah, looks like it's just going to be a little handshake on the fishing. Turns out it's pacifism, at least for now, at the end of the day. I did have a slip up earlier. I mentioned that it comes down to this, but of course it's a best of 7. It's a small mistake there by me. So there's still plenty more action to come here for us, which is definitely what we want to see. However, here, now we did mention the earlier superior economy of Tughlaq plays a significance. However, Anotand should be ahead in fishing ships, courtesy of the Imam garrisoned by default within that dock. But it looks like Anotand is going to go for a quick feudal turnaround instead.
And that's an interesting choice here. It makes a lot of sense, though. You want to get your military ship out just that little bit faster. Wham still looking pretty committed to just staying on the wood. And this worries me a little bit for him, because if Anotand's age up is just so much faster, this can just snowball out of control. So Wham getting that 6th fishing ship as well. I am starting to feel a slight bit of concern here, but already moved out here to the gold. He is getting ready for this. And Dome of the Faith being built with 6. This is an age-up timing where you want it to come in pretty damn quick. And he's doing exactly that. But yet another fishing boat for Wham here. We're getting to the number now where they will not be fitting into the docks. So once the military ship comes, he's going to need to cycle those pretty well.
There are 2 docks up on that pond for Wham, so that does remove a lot of the threat of you getting locked down on just one of the docks. He might even look to add a 3rd potentially if he wants. Then he will have the garrison slots, but of course his food income will suffer greatly as a result of those fishing ships being garrisoned. The timing here is very starkly different. Wham could be in a lot of danger if Anotand is very effective with his micro here and keeps idling that fishing eco, which he certainly will by the looks of it. I don't really see how Wham can withstand this timing initially, because he doesn't really have much of a food bank built up. He's not going to be able to double afford fishing ship, to afford both the ships needed to hold this, I meant to say. Looks like, yeah, Anotand wants to try to get a second dock up, but the issue is, that is the problem. The timing is great, but there's not going to be a second dock with so many fishing ships from Wham.
Now, with his first ship coming out, I'm really excited to see Anotand going for a springald ship here. Now, the galley is usually the choice, of course. But getting the springald is just going to put your opponent in a position where he needs to spend a lot more resources to handle this. And of course, with a galley, the micro is important, but this guy, he target fires and he shoots real hard. Look at that. Making sure that these guys are going to need to shuffle around a little bit, but of course, only one target at a time. And with the healing from the dock, oh, it really doesn't land. It feels a little bit barren here. I finally understand why the galley is the choice first.
Yeah, exactly. The DPS is way higher for the galley on those fishing ships as opposed to the springald ship. And you can see with so many fishing ships, they can pack a punch indeed. They can even start to trim. They can start to trim the springald ship so that the demo finishes it, or at least the fishing ship finishes it, which they do. But Anotand's own demo, he actually pulls it back. He doesn't want to hit the fishing ships. He wants to save it for the bugler that's going to come out from Wham very, very soon here, which now has reached, but the fishing ships do a lot of damage. Will he sacrifice all of them though? And he will.
I don't think that was on purpose, Myriad. This man would not sacrifice all those fishing boats on purpose, but so he did. And we see, the bugler is trying his best, but the other fishing boats are doing work. We do see that dock healing coming in clutch, but at the same time, very quickly losing yet another one. Now, this is starting to feel quite expensive. Wham is the one who's invested a significant amount of fishing boats here, and he has lost a bunch. But the springald ship, he is doing work. We do see a demo ship here at the back for another one in production, but he needs to be careful with this. Fishing boats here to repair, and this is a crazy trade out. Anotand, he gets a beautiful connection.
Yeah, that's a very big connection. Taking down that bugler is absolutely crucial to extend Anotand's hold further on this pond. Not much of a hold, so much as a contention still at this point in time, because no clear winner is yet decided. Wham has an undoubtable lead. Already again, the tri-ship combination is up and running. The Dow is likely to fall. The springald ship finishes it off. And yeah, there's nothing left here for Anotand. This pond is dead. He has to bail. One more springald ship will be allowed to come out just to buy a bit further time. Hopefully some further investment here from Wham. But that's not going to happen. And suddenly, Anotand is in dire straits at this point in time. This is exactly what we spoke of before on this map. The one spot you don't want to be in. Your opponent already on 6 fishing ships at this point in time, adding more as we speak. Meanwhile, only now are you starting your commitment on the second pond after losing the first one. This is not a good spot to be in for Anotand, and it looks like Wham is not even going to let him have the second pond for free.
Now, in this spot, you want to make sure your opponent doesn't get any type of economy where he can just run away with it. Ooh, but he does get a pretty solid connection here on that villager and does deter him from finishing this dock. Now, this dock will remain unfinished, but there's an elephant that has something to say about that. So with this, goes directly towards the villager and wants to make him pay a price for daring to step out this far. Now, these elephants, they are not going to leave any villager alive, and he does take down his first victim. But now the jig is up and Anotand knows what's on the way. He's going to need to make some units, and Ghazi Raiders are the weapon of choice. But a healer elephant behind this for Wham, with that food economy he's got going onto this lake, he is going to have a great time producing these.
For sure. With the military count already climbing for Wham, with the healer elephant and raider elephant. Anotand does add his own Ghazis now as well, finally, but again, everything's on a delay because of that initial misfortune on the pond. Behind him, fishing ships. Behind him, military. Anotand has a mountain to climb this game. And the dock did get denied, which is a great start, but it's going to be a while until he catches up in fishing ships. And really, Wham has plenty of options available here. He could look to fight hardcore, or you could even potentially look to leverage this lead into a castle timing, which can backfire against something like the Delhi.
Now, backfiring, it's going to require a lot of work to do so, but look at that healing Myriad. That Raider Elephant, he is just going to dominate these poor little Ghazis. And that is the power of the elephants. Now, Wham doubling down on elephants, but getting a few spears in the mix too, which is going to mean these Ghazis are going to need to work extra hard. And they've realized, hey, maybe we shouldn't be fighting elephants, let's go find some vills. But there's a spearman in the line waiting there. And that's the beauty of the Taklak. They can just relocate. So more fishing boats on the way. And Wham is definitely investing quite a bit here onto the lake. Now, this makes sense, of course, when you want to get as much food as possible, but you're going to tap out that fishing economy so quickly. So this is usually done when you want a very heavy timing push. But as the later the game goes, it can start to be a little bit of a negative here. We'll see how much Anotand puts in on that lake himself.
Now the Raider Elephants, they are beefy indeed, but they are not classified as heavy units, which works against the Ghazis here, as the +2 damage is only going to come in useful against these healer elephants, which you kind of want to focus regardless if you cannot deal with the army first. One Ghazi Raider does fall to the tusks of these 3 elephants. Wham continuously adding fishing ships even now. Shoreline fish, very important these days after getting buffed quite a bit, so making sure to exhaust those as well, Wham is. You know, Anotand starting his own fishing ships, but it's just all behind, isn't it? He does starting to add his own spears at this point in time to match Wham's, but soon enough Wham will actually have his own archers to follow up, and when the tri-composition is filled out for both, I feel like the edge has to go over to Wham's Tughlaq. Once the stampede comes through in these fights, it gets so difficult.
Especially with the fact that Anotand hasn't found an answer to handling these. He's getting a handful of spears now, but these handful of spears are going to need to perform miracles. We've seen Wham now losing a village or two to the Ghazis, but this is a temporary issue. The elephant mass is starting to build significantly. But at the same time, we are seeing Anotand make other plans for getting some extra food in there. So he is going to be able to snack on a few of these deer packs on the side, but there's not as much as we usually see out of them. So Anotand now, he doesn't have a blacksmith or double blacksmith up yet, which just means that those upgrades are coming in so slowly. While on the other hand, Wham doesn't even see that as a necessity going into castle. He's ready to click this up. And the problem for him is going to be, it is going to be a little bit expensive. So if he goes and reinvests to try get those upgrades, it is going to be a pretty heavy timing for Anotand to try and contest. But Anotand just doesn't have the gold for this. He doesn't have the ability to follow up with it. And Compound of the Defender is the choice here. But Anotand doesn't realize that this is coming. And a surprise into castle is devastating.
Devastating indeed, especially as the Delhi with your slow upgrades, and especially facing the Tughlaq with their extra speedy upgrades here. It can't really get worse for Anotand in this position. He does now have the military lead because of Wham's investment into the compound, so he has to find some kind of meaningful damage here, or at least retain enough control to find his own age up and then survive the death push that's likely coming his way. Only 2 healer elephants for now, which is kind of the minimum amount you want as Tughlaq. That way they can also heal themselves, of course. But looks like Anotand doesn't really have an in here. He probably smells what's coming at this point in time due to how defensive Wham is playing all of a sudden, despite having a lead. And the castle age has been reached. There's so many Ghazis here. Plenty enough to actually find some potentially meaningful damage here, but the upgrades are rolling in for Wham. Actually, they're not. There's no gold. There's no upgrades at all coming in for Wham yet. He's forced to take this fight head on without having the gold to access any of his crucial upgrades. No units in queue either that he actually needs. No men-at-arms or anything of the sort. The spearmen as well as the Ghazis are directly contesting the Raider elephants, but they're just not really dying fast enough. The hero elephants doing plenty of work in this position, and it looks like Wham is holding. The upgrade for the veterancy for the Raider elephants has finally come through, and that's enough to break through.
Anotand is trying to make something to deal with this, and it's just more units. But Wham coming out ahead here is massive. Usually, you don't get into a spot where you've just aged up and you can take the fight instantly, but Wham, he felt confident with this. And with those 3 healer elephants, all of a sudden, those veteran units are going to be able to run into any crevice they deem raidable. And now another war elephant coming out too. So Anotand, he's on a timer here. He needs to get to castle to find something to handle this, but he knows how difficult this is going to be with just not having the resources available to him just yet. And the push is coming. Anotand has the numbers, but the quality is on the side of Wham.
Wham here. Looking to make the push that breaks Anotand in this game number 5 here. And puts him on match point after this win if he manages to secure it. And it's looking pretty close to that position now. As Anotand now stuck between a rock and a hard place. This is such a painful position to be in, knowing that you cannot survive this push unless you invest further into units. But if you invest further into units, you'll never end up reaching Castle Age. So it feels like it's a lose-lose situation no matter what. And to add insult to injury, it's going to be a Tuklakabad fort drop.
And we know what comes out of those. This is one of those plays where they can just spawn units that are, in the end, going to be unkillable. Denying that second goal too, Anotand is stuck between an elephant and a keep. I was going to say a hard place, but every single part of this is just a bunch of elephants. So he does see that this is happening, and he knows that this is the moment to take that engage, but he hasn't spent all his resources. This just means that if the fight goes badly, he knows I should have just made more units, but the villagers are pulled. He wants to stop this, and he might actually do so. The keep does get denied, and all the stone is gone. Villagers not really having that many losses, but they are fighting back. They need to be careful for the stomps on the ground. Vils getting pulled back. 11 has gone down, but keep in mind, some of those are just fishing boats. Anotand stays kind of alive, but the army is not thinning out.
I wouldn't even call it a Pyrrhic victory at this point, frankly. The Tuklakabad fort was cancelled, sure, but the price has been paid, and it's a very dear one indeed. Now Wham is coming to deliver the goods, and the goods is death, unfortunately. Anotand scrambling now with his economy to try to pull something together, delay as much as he can. At least the war elephant and the healer elephant are slow, and now every single one almost of Anotand's economy is going to be placed on that House of Learning. But I mean, 12 scholars, yeah, it's a decent amount, but not enough to get upgrades in time. Anotand is currently in the processing phase for sure, already thinking likely of what's he gonna whip out for next game to get him out of this hole.
Oh, this is a very tough spot to put yourself in, but again, you've just lost against the Tuklak on a hybrid map. You're not feeling too worried about what this holds for the future. It doesn't really spell out what the rest of these matches hold, but it's match point, so still really high stakes. You know what you need to do. You would need to win 2 in a row. Well, Wham, he's going to be cruising his way into getting into that spot for the Wololo Championship with Marine Lord already. So Anotand, he knows the stakes. But this should not be the map that deters him from the rest of his progress. And we see Wham just absolutely cleaning up every single villager he has ever worried about producing. Numbers are just dwindling as Anotand is losing more and more, and the elephants are standing there completely uncontested.
Exactly, the TC is permanently idle at this point in time. Any villager that will come out might be able to outrun those elephants, but there's no outrunning death, unfortunately, here for Anotand in this game number 5. He's gonna look to cut some reinforcements with the archers, but I mean, this is all just buying thinking time, I think, honestly. Just deciding what else to do in next game, and also just a bit of fun, most likely at this point. Just to, of course, these players are good friends. They can meme each other a little bit here, right?
But you can just see the power of the elephants. At this stage of the game, there's nothing that takes them down. The Raid Elephants eventually losing their life. A crossbow falling down. But this is an absolute destruction. Anotand, he's just trying to heal his way back into the future. But villagers getting denied, even on those sides. And the main TC, it's not doing any damage. Marianne. It's firing, but everything is healed back to full.
Yeah, There's no damaging the healing and the armor on those war elephants at this point. There's just no way. And TC is pretty much going down now. Some last minute repairs, but insufficient wood for Anotand to repair that TC. And insufficient hopes in this game anymore, unfortunately. Last stand is made by the army underneath that TC, but Anotand knows really. He had his processing time. Might have made his decision when it comes to the second game. He was probably considering the maps as well. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me if he all tabbed through that just to check and think about what comes next. It's a perfectly viable thing to do. Of course, you want to make sure that your decisions matter here. So I'm curious to see what he has decided for the next game, because at this point, Wham is now on match point and one game away from securing his position in London.
I am so excited for Wham here. So actually, I want to give you guys, before we yap about the fact that English just got picked here, I met Wham a few years ago at the first Wololo that we had for Age of Empires 4, and he was the shyest person I've ever met. He was standing, not really saying much, but every single time I've seen him after, I feel like he's just blossomed and become this absolute personality. And slowly but surely, we see him emerging. His gameplay, his play style, it's creative, it's wonderful. And Wham, I'm really excited for this man. He has grown so much as a creator, as a player, and he's really putting his signature on his play style here. So Anotand, he's got his work cut out for him. But seeing Wham in this type of light is absolutely wonderful. And now, what's even more wonderful is the fact that he picks English. So, ladies and gentlemen, English on Socotra, are you ready?
English against French. The most classic of matchups here on one of the least classic of maps, Socotra, here, in our game number 6. And Wham leading 3-2, so Anotand desperately needs this win to even stay in this competition for this week, of course. And then that would be a game 7. And the French here, the French has delivered him a great victory earlier up against Macedonians. It was Ottomans even, actually, against Papipol. But it also delivered him a win against the Macedonians yesterday against... Oh, I forget who it was against. Someone can remind us in chat. But again, it might deliver him the victory he needs today. But against English, now Socotra is traditionally a very nice map for the English. That early boar, so potent. And if you get an outpost up on that boar as well, suddenly you have the network of castles covering half the map.
Now, this is a pretty nice spot for anyone with the English, because you have the spicy villagers, as I like to call them. Those villagers that can just fire those short bows and keep you under control the moment you dare step into their range. So we've seen plenty of man lose villagers against English here. Now, Anotand, he's a wild one. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually tries to do something to contest this. But I remember a game pretty recently where someone had lost, I think it was something like 4 villagers in the early game, and still made it all the way back against an English. So English, they do get access to that boar pretty early on, and there's very few things that can stop them. But if there is, Anotand is going to find that answer in Feudal Age. I hope. Otherwise, English is just going to have access to way more food, and you on French, you're definitely not looking at playing against a serve that can outproduce you, your number of knights, and get you under control. Now, English in general is a civilization that deals quite well with that farm transition. French, on the other hand, they are always out on the map. So once English gets that ball rolling, once they get map control, it's so difficult to come back against that. But Anotand is the kind of guy who would not even mind going for a deer pack out there pretty early on. So all the cards are on the table, and I'm excited to see which one Anotand picks. But Wham, he did just win a game against French recently. So maybe this is his mantra. He's like, I will face the French. I've got this. Just no Sengoku.
Yeah, you cannot allow Sengoku through, apparently, as this marks the 3rd time Wham has banned it in this series, and I've no doubt he'd ban it on front range as well, most likely, if I'm honest. But we'll have to see if he gets to that point, because it all comes down to this game so far. This could potentially be the match point for this evening, and we're going to find out very soon. If we're talking theory here, though, now Anotand plays a sublime French, I have to say. His knight control is very scary to watch. Wham English is something I haven't seen in a long time, and, you know, admittedly English, a bit less room for real skill expression compared to something like knights, right? English is English at the end of the day. But in terms of the matchup and map, it just can't get better for English, can it? A short map, very easily wallable, limited resources, and it all works out perfectly in English's favor. We'll have to see whether that's enough for Wham to close out today, as he spawns in the color purple, in the north side of Socotra, facing Anotand's French in the color yellow in the south side here. Mill opening for Anotand, marked what is likely to be a wheelbarrow here. And Wham, very interestingly, doesn't even try to go for the ball.
That is wild. Wham might just be the only one in the history of this. Oh, never mind. Yeah, okay. It's okay. It's okay, Marriott. Everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. That scout making no mistakes, though. He's tanking like an absolute boss. The boar biting away everything he can. But, ooh, Anotand, he was ready to try and fight it. But look at that villager. He's getting dangerously low. Does need to pull back. And a new villager will be taking his place all the way out here. But this is now a pretty safe ball.
It is, and it's only going to get safer once a tower is undoubtedly placed to secure that position. Normally, you'd love to skip the tower, as most civilizations in that case. If you don't need it, you don't need it. However, English would love to get that tower up, getting that network of castles extended towards that center. And if they can get a few more outposts up, maybe on the flanks, then they can really secure the map with a significant military advantage. Question is it going to be Abbey or Council Hall here for Wham? I'm a big believer in Council Hall on these kind of maps when going for this type of ball play. With the barracks, you can go to the tried and true composition of longbows and spearmen. On a small map like this, it can pay dividends even against the French, but the position of the Abbey is hard to ignore.
Now, this scout is taking a little bit of a look-see to see exactly what he's going to be up against. But a nice tower here secures quite a lot of the resources. And pulling the boar, it just shows you what type of power it gives this civilization. I want us to take a quick look at the spawns here, because I've noticed a pattern on Socotra. And this is something I'm looking at every single time. On this side of the map, every single time we get the gold a few tiles away from the water there. So this one will still be reachable by ships, but it does mean for the knights to have a little bit of an easier movement if they decide to raid. Council Hall is the choice, though. Can we take a quick look at the French side of the gold? French side of the gold. Thank you, sir. This one continually spawns exactly like that, completely in the range of the TC and the run-by area, just not really as comfortable as the other side. So, as far as spawns go, Anotand being on the French on this side, this works out for him because he's going to have a little bit more leeway out there on the English side to do those raids if it gets to it. So, I'm not too sure if this is intended, but it can definitely favor a civilization or two who do favors that mobility, especially with these knights.
It's true, the spawns being very safe here kind of favors both players to a certain extent. No longbows are going to be able to easily wrap around those wood lines to the gold without severely overextending themselves, which is always something you never want to do when you're using longbows, especially as the English, as you don't have Byzantine's economy to fall back onto. But for Wham as well, less space for the knights to maneuver around his base. Easy walls will secure some farmland. Space is often a big limiting factor on this map, surprise, surprise, but especially for something like the English, who need very clear-cut space to maximize their economy bonus in the form of those farms. That can be a disadvantage here.
Now, what I would like to see about that as well is when we see a lot of action on the water side as well, people like to build a ship, especially the French variety of people. They love to do a little bit of pressure there from the other side. But at the same time, now that thing can be pretty easily secured with an outside tower, whereas the other side, it does just not have that ability. But the first knight is in queue, double broadex as well for Anotand. He says, I'm going to need a lot of wood. And that is the priority for this one. But now French getting those upgrades for so much cheaper, he doesn't mind that extra bit of investment. He needs to make sure that those longbow numbers do not get into a position where they can actually handle the knights. Oh, and the scout goes down.
Losing the... That's a big loss here for Anotand. That loses him a lot of tempo. People will think, oh, he has a stable, he can just remake it. Yes, but that's a lot of time that's spent not producing a knight during a point of the game where it matters very much to keep that school of cavalry pumping knights non-stop. So that's a big pickup there for Wham. Now with spears in production, one already on the field, so there's no danger here on this ball. This ball will be Wham's to control from here on out, and a great position to do so. Really, the scaling economy of the French here is going to serve them very well, as long as the cheaper upgrades. But this is still going back to what we've seen from the very beginning of the game, ultimately. The pressure is on Anotand to find some damage.
Now, Anotand, he tries to circle around, see if there's anything to charge on, but the walls are ready. Wham is aware of the weakness of leaving those spaces open, and one night raid can change things very, very quickly. Spearman getting into position now. He does not want to risk getting charged on, because this is not the English that gets to pull their villagers back and heal them up to full with a nice little Abbey of Kings. This is just a man who's fully committed to making longbows, I say. But as I'm saying that, he doesn't have a lot of longbows. He knows what's important here. He needs to handle those knights.
Yeah, absolutely. The longbows will do quite well in handling the knights later on when Steelwood Arrow is in. But for now, the spearmen, we're going to have to do that job. Archer's now on the field already for Anotand, and the galley is a significant detail here. The galley is the first produced here by Anotand. So he went for that play before Wham did, and he's going to be able to deny Wham's gold for now, which he doesn't care about too much for now, but as soon as Anotand starts getting his blacksmith upgrades, which will be pretty soon, then it does turn into quite a bit of a problem. So this is something Wham has to be very careful of. Now, access to longbows definitely takes the sting away from this galley somewhat. Has to be very careful how far deep it goes, because the longbows will outrange it and do significant damage to it. And the dock being so far away means no easy reparations.
And this is the beauty of having English here as well. I love this for Wham, because Wham is responding on the water, which most people, they get surprised by the water attack. Wham is not a man who gets surprised. He scouts, he knows exactly what's cooking. And you can see Anotand not investing any more on the water. He knows the risk of this. The moment he puts a little bit more in the water, Wham will have the time to respond, and he most likely will not be able to get control of that gold too easily. Just like you said, because of these longbows, they handle the galley pretty well. And of course, that gold is pretty far in. He needs to get close to land a good shot, but the knight numbers are starting to increase. The problem is just in return, so are the spear numbers, and they will be able to handle most things. The blacksmith now finally being completed. This is going to mean that that +1 steeled arrow is going to hit very differently. And if that's the first thing he clicks up, he knows what's important.
Yes, absolutely. So it's going to be Wham who has the upgrade advantage at this point, starting it a little bit earlier than Anotand. Have to see how big of an impact that makes if there is a very specific timing push on the cards here by Wham. Knights keep circling constantly. They have to find a stray villager, a stray spear, a longbow here and there. That is how you can get the edge going here.
Now, usually, English and French, we used to see a very favored matchup for English back in the day. But now, French, they do have that little bit of an edge with the villager production. So you do have a faster villager production, and that feels great. The problem is just, it takes such a long time to really pay off, because of course, English is already doing a little bit of a food transition. You're the one out here on the map trying to make things work. We do have a technical pause here for a second as we see the ships facing off, but this gives us some time to discuss this. At what point does French actually get ahead with this villager count? Because already he's got 4 villagers more, but we don't really see that reflecting in the economy, because he doesn't have the boar, he doesn't have any bonuses with the food gathering like the English does with the farms. What can we expect to see from this matchup the longer the game goes?
Well, the economy would already be in favor of Anotand in terms of income if Wham didn't have access to that boar. The boar is the great equalizer in this case. Despite Anotand having wheelbarrow, horticulture, double broadaxe already compared to Wham only having the double broadaxe, undoubtedly Anotand's economy is way superior at this point in time, but that boar equalizes it. Now, once that boar is finished, we're going to see how that reflects in the military numbers, but you can already see it's boding pretty well for Wham. Normally French would be significantly ahead in units by this count, but that boar enables Wham to keep a good count of longbows and spears to match those knights. So it's a really big problem. Only 500 food left on that, and I'm not sure there's any farms just yet for Wham, but really, if this keeps going very passively like this, Anotand is going to keep building his villager lead, but Wham will keep building these cheap farms. Eventually, Anotand will need a castle timing or a pretty decisive engagement, otherwise the food economy will become out of control here for Wham.
And getting all of that boar just means 2,500 food, which is basically for free. You've invested a tower that you would have wanted there anyway, getting control of that little bit of a stealth forest and not run into any surprises. But Anotand, he's out here on the map, he's trying to get the food as much as he can, because he knows he has a little bit of a power spike at some point, and that point is a lot earlier than it is for English. So now, with this galley still in the water, we don't see any other crazy action. The longbow numbers are going to start to matter. Now, the archer numbers from Anotand are insane, and he is getting the +1 attack as well, already has the defense. But horticulture coming out for Wham too. He's trying to equalize this in terms of economic upgrades. But you have to keep in mind, knights, they do hit pretty hard if you make one misstep.
They definitely do. Knights can punish an overextension so painfully here, so Wham has to be very careful, keeping his spears very far back in reserve, just expanding with the scout and the longbows, having a look at what exactly is going on this side of the map. Anotand is placing full respect on this. He's not going for any excessively greedy castle timing or anything of the sort here. He's just biding his time, massing units, just waiting for a time. And you can see how defensive this is for such a small, aggression-orientated map. Both sides understand the ramifications of a full fight and knowing just how easily it can go wrong for either of them. So both are very hesitant to commit here. Wham may look potentially to expand his zone of influence further by starting an outpost creep. He could look to expand further in the center, but it will start with a wall first, very prudently.
Now, in a position like this, where you do have this amount of longbows, you feel like you can handle most of what knights do. But they do get to this critical mass where they run over everything. But the villagers are out here. And Myriad, if he just moves, he doesn't spot this. And that was a little bit of an opening for him to try and snipe one or two. But no. He doesn't have eyes at the back of his head. He has to be careful here. But those archers are going to get the warning signs with the longbows range extending everywhere.
Wham's own galley is now fighting Anotand, as Anotand looked to make another little attack from the rear. But with the dock in place there, Anotand's galley will never win that fight because of the healing, of course, and the attack speed aura that Wham's galley has behind it underneath that TC. Now Anotand looking to pivot towards this northern side. Oh yeah, the timing here is huge.
It is massive. This is the one moment that Wham might be a little bit susceptible to this. The longbows are a little bit far out and he's looking to go to castle. Man-at-Arms now in queue. He's quickly redirecting his resources, but the spears are in position to get picked off. And the longbow mass, it definitely has suffered, but he is going to lose a few knights to this little bit of a deep run-in. The network of castles making a major difference in these attacks, but this is as good as it's going to go for Anotand here. 5 villager kills as well. Where did this happen?
Yeah, it was a big timing to hit here for Anotand. He smelt that castle age intention so well. It was the opportune time to hit and finds a lot of damage on the wood line here. So many villages have went down, and I think damage has been found on that southern deer as well. So now his economic lead is quite staggering indeed, but the danger has not yet passed. You can see the destroyed value is firmly in Wham's favor, so Anotand has secured an even bigger economic lead, but sacrificed an army advantage for it. And now the tech advantage as well is being sacrificed because Wham is edging up. And he's placing it, well, he wants to place it right there, but is first going to go through with a wall to make with a gate, I mean, to make sure that the village can escape if necessary. And this position is very hard to deny. It's so well fortified. Behind the walls, the knights cannot reach that side, and the network is still active underneath that outpost. This is a very big problem here for Anotand, I want to say. He's trending towards his own Asia behind this, but with the presence of that white tower, how will you ever push underneath that to stop the inevitable trebs that will start coming out?
And that's the beauty of English on this map. You have a major production building that can make anything your heart desires from there. This gives you the network of castles. You are, as the French, you're the one who's going to feel like you need to react to this. Anotand, he does see that age up, but realizing that it will most likely just be the white tower, he's going to need to respect this. He did get 8 Vil kills, so for him, this feels okay. But he does need to keep in mind, this is not just English. This is English with farms. So English is going to do a pretty good job at sustaining for now. If Anotand can get to that point where he's also getting that momentum, this could very easily go his way. Already with that 15 villager lead, but we see 22 Vils idle. They're starting to run out of things to do here.
Yeah, the space is getting more and more limited here for Anotand as resources are running out. So is his income slowly running out, and with veteran longbows now you can see just the damage these guys start to do. The knights themselves are under heavy fire and they melt quickly indeed to these longbows. Every volley one can go down, and Anotand's own archers can soak up some of the damage, but do you really want archers soaking up damage? Not typically. And with the aura as well, Wham, just using the range of the longbows perfectly, and that's exactly what you have to do with English. That is how you can potentially secure fights that seem otherwise very difficult to take. You have to kite your ass off.
And now you can see those villagers desperately clawing at a little bit of resources there on the side. The knights, though, feeling a little bit more confident moving out, but they have to be careful. They're not castle variety just yet, but they're about to hit it, and they want to be on top of the longbows the moment that happens. And it's here. This is going to mean that these knights don't take as much damage as Wham wants them to, but he does have +2, so they will still be able to put up a pretty good fight. Now, you still see the army value for Anotand. This man is pretty happy with where he's at. He just needs to find yet another food for gold and for food. Oh, another answer for food, not another food for food. Oh my goodness. It tells you 8 hours in and these guys must be cooked because we are cooked.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And it's all on the line here, without a doubt for sure, because Wham isn't even caring about relics. He just wants to make sure he maximizes his full attention on expanding in this center and his unit control, making sure the micro is as potent as it can be, because yeah, relics will make a difference 10 minutes down the line, but if Wham has his way, it's not going to last that long. Yotro had come up, so that's already ticking. But I'm not sure the game will last long enough either way for that to really matter here. Though in the position we find ourselves in, I think Anotand definitely needs that time because he is definitely on the back foot here. Look at the food income. It's tragic. Only 300 a minute. And it's not going to get any better because even wood axes is not something that Anotand can get right now. Wham is just pure longbows at this stage. He knows there's such a minimal knight count that is not really a threat for him anymore. Level 2 range damage is already in. Secondary ranged armor is coming in for him now as well.
Now, what's interesting to me is that Anotand hasn't reinvested a little bit on trying to get that tower to be in place, because I feel like Wham has constantly overextended in under that tower of his every single time. Now, there is a singular knight here from Wham, and this knight, he's looking to perform some magical miracles. But these longbows are feeling so confident and still constantly under that tower, feeling so confident without the threat of anything coming their way. The archers now from Anotand, they're moving towards those villages on the, I guess, the east. and just trying to save them here. But now the tower does get in place and he says, okay, this is gonna now pay off. But the problem is the trebuchet has arrived. And I think it is just a little bit too late. The villagers are pulled. He wants to repair this. Oh, actually, he's just getting the vills inside to try and make sure those arrow fires hit even harder. But that tower is important in keeping this position. And if Wham gets it down, it's going to get harder and harder for him to hold.
You can see the aura here and the damage of the longbows paying so much food for Wham. He doesn't even need a front line. His front line is this wall, and nothing shall pass as long as these longbows are in position. He's making nothing but longbows, and that's all he needs. The poor power of English on display here. Once they are online, once they have the network extended to your base, there's very little that can stem this tide.
And Wham just showing us that he's ready to qualify for this, but this is a critical moment. Those longbows, they can still overstep into this mass of knights. These knights are trying to heal up as much as they can. The longbows feeling very confident moving in on those villagers, but the knights are not in position, and he will possibly yet get another kill. But the longbows, again, pulling back. He wants to be very methodical about this. The trebuchet is now the one doing the work.
Yes, with that first trebuchet marks what might be the beginning of the end here for Anotand, and this is only going to expedite it as damage is taken on the wood line, but the treb is doing work already. Even the treb is getting the attack speed bonus from that network of castles, and I'm sure by now we even have network of citadels in, right? We can have a quick check on the White Tower to find out. No, it's actually not in yet, surprisingly. Yeah, it's a very big upgrade. I'm very surprised to not see it in yet, but it's easy to forget, and it is quite expensive soon enough, I'm sure. But does he even need it anymore, frankly, because damage has been done. The economy is set up mostly here for Wham, although the farms are still quite minimal. He relied a lot on the deer, as well as his external food, to carry him thus far, and it's worth it even as the English, because you can spend that wood on, well, more longbows and trebs.
And that's exactly what he did here. Those knights look like they're made of paper. +2 is not enough for this. And he tries to research something that gives him units faster, but there are no units for this poor man. Anotand is doing anything and everything he can to make this work. Oh, but he does break the wall, and a knight is here in position. He should be able to break through here, but even if he does, what is he met with? Just White Tower fire. So even with this villager lead, Anotand just doesn't have the ability to secure food or any safe place for him to really push out and take down this army of English. But again, I mean, like you said, Wham has relied a lot on external resources. He does still have quite a few berry packs though, so he's not in too much of danger. But Anotand does get a moment of breathing room to try and find an answer to this very hungry army.
Anotand bought himself some much needed time by sniping that trebuchet there and getting his own 2 trebuchets on the field, starting to cancel out this position from Wham in the center. And it's about getting time for Wham to begin thinking of a slightly more varied composition, because the longbows are very powerful, sure, but the knight count is looking pretty healthy again. 10 is not something to scoff at. He has a few spares in reserve, which he's going to call in now as he needs the most, but the aura is active yet again as the bells ring for the English, which means a lot of firepower once again.
And this is going to keep happening as he backs away into safety every single time. But as he steps forward, the knights again look for that bit of an opening. They just know they cannot run all the way forward. So the knights are looking for a different type of victim. The archers moving forward now here, a few villagers paying the price, but the knights from Wham are the ones doing the damage now. And Anotand, he got a little bit of a boost here with regards to the food income, but I don't know if this is going to be enough for him to keep this army mass going. The knights are not in queue. He's not making any more. He just doesn't have the gold for it.
There's no gold. The gold is just gone. And without the gold for French, that normally means so are the hopes of winning the game, because it's looking harder and harder. Now half of the archer count to Wham's longbow count. A horrific position to be in as the archer utilizer, as the knights are just getting two-shot by this mass at this point in time. Anotand is bleeding left, right and center. Villages as well as units. Just the few knights produced by Wham from that White Tower have been wreaking havoc this entire time as well for Anotand. Discovering villages on the flanks in the north, in the south, and just keeping him busy and that economy idle for as long as he possibly can. It was like Anotand had cashed in the guild hall, which is just a necessity at this point. Anything he can scrounge to keep his hopes alive, but it's just looking harder and harder.
And he's got the boats to support, but even with the supportive boats, the knights are barely taking a bit of damage. Anotand knows this is his last chance to try and qualify this week, as Wham is looking to secure that second spot, but the knights, they are very ready to push on forward. He doesn't want to lose a single one because he knows exactly how difficult they will be to replace. The villagers are still alive, some of them, and trying to get the gold he needs. The knight's getting on top now, but with these archers, he does need to snipe these spears, and he does exactly that. But those stray spears keep on coming out. Network of castles now again active, and it just doesn't feel like Anotand is gaining the amount of ground he needs. But slowly, maybe.
He's inching forward, right? He crept ahead in Destroyed Valley at this point as well, so decent little engagements there for Anotand. Again, the lack of a frontline for Wham, I think, is making this a little bit tougher than it needs to be for him. And his economy is still struggling behind this. Even now, we don't have Wheelbarrow. There's definitely a bit of tunnel vision going on. In these high-stakes games, we see a couple more slip-ups from either side is very common. Just shows the intensity that is going on and the sheer concentration in getting the job done, of closing the game out. But often that is easier said than done, and patience can definitely be a virtue in these cases, as Anotand is exercising that very patience now by falling back and making sure these knights heal for as long as they possibly can before they are forced to yet again serve king and country and save Anotand in this game, which is looking to be sooner rather than later, because Wham has another treb working Anotand's infrastructure now.
Oh, what was really funny is for a while he did not have a single bit of food income, but slowly he's getting a few farms to try and manage this. The villagers trying to drop off now. They will be going to that southern gold from here, but a few will be paying the price with those longbows having such an insane range. The problem is there is 13 knights in this composition, and they will be able to possibly land a decent attack, but the archer numbers are just too severe. We can see Anotand trying to just target fire every spearman that dares come on through, but these knights are soaking up so many archer shots that every single time he gets the breathing room he thinks he needs, the longbows are just hammering away at every other unit.
Now, once again, the network, the knights just die so quickly to these longbows. It's just too much damage, too much range, and too much attack speed from them. And a keep going up here by Anotand, but a much needed keep, even though it is out of panic. He just desperately needs this to stay in this game. There's gold here, there's a sacred site, and even a little bit of food, I think, although the berry must have ran out. And Wham is just sitting here. He wants to take out as many of these villages as he possibly can, even though it means throwing away a few longbows. He knows that an economic lead of this magnitude can no longer be overcome, no matter what time this keep affords Anotand in this case, who at this point has 20 archers to his name and little else.
Now, with those 20 archers, he is just not able to snipe out those knights. That's the problem. The knights, they take so many shots. It's just not feasible to try and stay ahead of this. But Wham, he's got the trebuchet. Anotand making some of his own as well. But the keep is so expensive to repair. He's trying to get those archery rangers under the keep to get that discount. But the keep is going to keep hammering away. And he doesn't have the stone to repair this forever.
No, he does not. Keep. Still only one treb here for Wham, however. This entire time, there's been only one treb. A very slow and patient siege, I have to say. Normally, she plays investing into 2, 3, 4, even more trebs sometimes, but Wham sticking with just the one, understanding that all the additional wood has to be put into longbows, as one treb should be good enough to do the job here if he keeps it alive. Well, the second one at least, as the first one he didn't manage to, with that raid by Anotand at that point. As I say that though, of course I jinx it, and it's a second trip now.
And 2 trebuchets are something that most people just don't have an answer to, because you're slowly going to hammer away at this. And you can see Anotand's resources here. They're telling you a story of a hungry boy. Archers now trying to surround their own keep to just try and keep them alive, because these knights don't care. They're getting right on top. And even though they might get sniped out, the damage has been done. The longbows now finding more villages all the way out here. And Anotand, he's the one behind in villages now. As the keep is looking to fall, the longbows are going to be the victims, but so will these villagers. And unfortunately for Anotand, Wham wants to qualify and he wants to do it now, but he does need to be very patient here. Those trebuchets firing away at the keep. You see Anotand using every bit of his power to keep that keep alive, and his one single trebuchet will need to hit. It can't hit anything. Myriad, everything's cooked. This poor man. Got archers though.
The keep is gone. Yeah, there's a very healthy archer mass for Anotand. That's his sort of last hope in this case, but what are you gonna do with them? There's walls everywhere, network of castles, outposts, knights in production for Wham as well. He could very easily just go into men-at-arms if he wanted to as well at this point, and that's certainly gonna stop those archers from doing anything. I'm trying to stay hopeful here for Anotand, just to get ourselves a game 7, but it's looking less and less likely. It's just so much. English is online. Look at the food income. Again, we're in a position where Wham's food income exceeds Anotand's entire income by a significant margin at that.
And we see those longbows just hiding away behind the towers. They don't need to put themselves at risk. They've got the ranged advantage. They've got the existence advantage, as I'll call it. And Anotand says, this is my last hope. I'm going to go and try to find the damage I need. I've got the knights. The problem is just English has them as well. And he has even more. Now, the knights are going to be finding some villages that are quite far forward. But these archers are the ones who are in danger, with all of the longbows having their bonus as needed. And the spearmen are slowly pouring through to try and connect on the handful of knights that Anotand has. But it just doesn't feel like he can idle out an economy long enough. But the archers are doing a pretty good job of getting on top of this. The problem is just the knight numbers are not going to stop. Wham has a few of them in queue, and they're just going to turn around and snipe down anything that stands close to their base. That's exactly what's happening here. Myriad, it's all in shambles.
These are the last death throws here for Anotand in this game number 6, in this grand final of the Road to Red Bull Wololo. And GG is called. Wham secures his spot in the top 4 and makes it to the main event. The second player to reach this stage besides Marine Lord last week. And what a series. Fantastically played by Wham. An amazing effort by Anotand as well, who I'm sure will impress in the next weeks to come.
And this must feel amazing for Wham, taking him down 4-2. I can imagine Wham is feeling pretty proud of himself for being able to take down the Anotand like this. Anotand put up an amazing fight, and we can definitely see this man going his way through yet again next week. But there's 2 more spots remaining, and I feel like our top 3 contenders are staring right at one another. Anotand, Papipo, and Beastie. They are going to be the ones fighting for those last 2 spots, and it's pretty tight between those 3.
Well, don't forget about the Spanish brothers. They might have something to say about that too. So not everyone can make it. That's why the stakes are so high. But we'll have to see what that brings. However, we have someone waiting for us right now, as it looks like the one and only Wham is available for an interview. Give us a few insights as to this fantastic victory. And Wham, people claps in chat, everyone. Congratulations for Wham. Big win here for you, making it to the top 4 in Red Bull. How's it feel, man?
It feels really, really good. I mean, I don't think, myself included, anyone had in their bingo card for that I would qualify second. Not that I couldn't, but no one was really expecting that, I think.
I expected it. Don't worry. It's okay. I'm here for you. Yeah, that's the thing, right? In top 9, top 10, so to say. Obviously, Louis and B, who are also up there, they are not playing. But everyone else, right? You're all so very very close. An argument can be made for Marine Lord because of his consistency for so long that he might be a cut above the rest, but increasingly it feels like you guys just swap places, right? One goes up, one goes down by one spot, so on and so forth, and oftentimes it can become anyone's game, right?
Yeah, for sure, I think that. And I mean, honestly, going forward, it's going to be exciting because, like you said, anyone can make it, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
And this was, yeah, I'm glad we're being shown this. See, the moment I saw that villager up there in the north and I saw advancement, I knew exactly what's coming. You devil, you what have you done here? You destroyed Anotand this game, unfortunately. My teammate, this cheese is really really potent, isn't it? If it's not spotted, it's a very dangerous strategy against the Byzantines. Do you think you can, if you don't spot this in time? I guess you have to, but if you don't, is there any way you can hold here? Not really, right?
I mean, if you don't spot it, it's incredibly difficult. If you do spot it, you can go cash X. But I must say, I saw a Reddit post on Age of Empires 4 Reddit, and they said this strategy is broken, and it was literally this strategy. I'm like, you know what? It is kind of good. Like, and I'm like, you know what? I'm up against Byzantines. I might as well do it, especially on King of the Hill. So I must credit my victory to that Redditor. You know.
There you go. For once, Reddit has managed to stump the pro scene and come up with a winning strategy to use. I mean, to be fair, this has existed for a long time. I remember seeing actually Anotand himself doing this as Ayyubid against the Marine Lords Byzantines. And it was close, but it just failed. This was over a year ago at this point. Marine Lord did spot it though, right? He scouted it right as the barracks were finishing. So, 20 outposts later he held, but that's how it goes, sort of. But yeah, it's what's needed, and this sort of grand final case in these matchups is when to pull out this kind of a strat to secure victory. And then game number 2, this was an insane game. Talk us through this, Wham. What happened here?
I mean, honestly, I'm scared of KT on this kind of map, like, because I'm not like the best at being super aggressive, and I feel like that's kind of what you need to do, especially when he's playing like 2TC KT just hiding in his base the entire time. And I thought I played okay, but maybe I needed to ram the TC. It was forward. Maybe I should have done that in hindsight. I mean, I had a thought about that afterwards. Like even here, I'm only down 13 villagers, and I get most of the relics afterwards. But also, I played the mid game super poorly. I'm trying to force things, and I mean, there was a lot to say about this game. This was a 40-minute game. I was honestly really upset with the way this game turned out. Not because I even played super poorly, but because, like, strategically, I think I made a few errors, honestly.
And it's a tough one from a drop perspective as well, right? Because ultimately we exchange arguably a player's worst civilization for arguably a player's best civilization, right? And then the player with the best civilization loses, right? It's from a draft perspective, it becomes quite tricky from then on. Now, you are a game up at this point, so that obviously takes some of the sting off, but it can make things very tricky from here on out, especially after such a long slugfest. Psychologically, were you quite worried knowing these factors present in the game? How much did that impact you? Because you might think, oh, I lost with Ottomans against KT, like that would do a bit of a number on me, but it can happen. Like you mentioned, this Civ cannot be underestimated on this type of a map, especially.
I mean, it did a little bit, but I wouldn't say it was that significant. I mean, I also won with Ayyubids against Byzantines, right? And he banned Byzantines, so
right.
Obviously not happy about it, but I'm not tilted by the fact you just have to keep going and focus on the next kind of games.
Absolutely right. That's a great mindset to have, and yeah, good point for sure. It's a similar case in game 1, right? I mean, Ayyubid's better than KT, but still, kind of counted traditionally by Byzantine. So picking up that win is certainly helpful. Then we move on to Macedonians against HRE. I mean, I thought Anotand had the plan here revolving around the Burgrave, and I was right, but maybe the timing here with this semi-naked castle, just a few spears, might have been forced a little bit too much. I mean, I feel like there might be a little potential to do something here with HRE because of the move speed, and you have the charge bonus. Maybe against Radari, there's a world I'm coping here. It's Macedonia at the end of the day, but maybe there's something HRE can do. I'm not sure, but you seemed in pretty firm control of this game.
Yeah, so I thought he played pretty well at the start of the game. I mean, he didn't really take too much damage. I was surprised that he was going castle immediately. Like, I kind of figured it out once he had so many on gold, right? Like, there's no other reason. Like, you're not building Malians in feudal here. And then I was even more surprised when he went Belgrave. I thought he would go Ragnitz. The thing is, it's Metadoms in general are just not that good against Macedonians, and you saw it in the Puppy Pot Anotand game with House of Lancaster against Macedonians. But Macedonians has a lot to deal with these kind of Metadoms rushes. They have the Golden Horn Tower, they have the emplacements, they even have their champions. Like, so I was really, really happy when I saw Belgrave, actually. Like, once I defend the initial attack, I feel like it's just GG, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. It still feels like, although it's very potent with that charge bonus, it's still sort of a timing attack, right? Which, if it fails, you kind of always feel like you'd rather have Regnitz, which obviously got to that position at that stage. And then we get into this situation, right, where, again, it's interesting from another player's perspective, seeing how this impacts the draft, because we have what technically could be argued as a throwaway in the form of HRE in the last game, and you could technically argue this is almost a throwaway for you as well up against the Chinese here on Dry Arabia. Obviously, every game matters, and you will put your best foot forward here, but it does feel really tough, doesn't it? I mean, Golden Horde, fantastic civilization once they get going, but very slow. Whereas China, I mean, few civs are faster, right?
Yeah, China's very, very fast, and they have a really strong castle age timing, which is just kind of what Golden Horde struggles with. But honestly, I didn't play this game that great. Like, he killed a villager at the start of the game. I actually played this. I think I played this matchup against Anotand in practice, but I did the same strat I did, and he kind of countered it a little bit with like a horseman initially, just to force me off of the hunt. And I didn't get my Keshex early enough, and it was kind of a disaster most of this game. I tried to stay in it, but even some of the fights, like, you can see my destroy value is a little bit higher. Like, these fights weren't that bad, but I think overall, it wasn't enough, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it, the Chinese economy as well, right? It just balloons so quickly and gets out of control, and then, yeah, once you stabilize in castle, you could be fine, but it's difficult getting into that stage, right? A quick question about this though: that's stable there. I mean, obviously, I'm guessing the outpost was in the works, but did you mean to start with the stable? Is this part of a build order, or did you mean to go for the outpost first?
I mean, I meant to go with the stable first, but I just didn't expect he would make a horseman so quick. Like,
I thought so.
I mean, it's a good strategy, but like, I should have scouted for it. We should have used my con to push away the horseman, but I mean, I didn't, and it was a pretty bad start, honestly.
Yeah, they just come out to the horseman because the Geshik timing was pretty good, despite that very soon after the age up, and it's so expensive. So it was a good timing. Clearly, it was a good build order, but yeah, that horseman perfectly placed, and that made things quite difficult. And then we have variant against the original here, Tughlaq against Delhi. Honestly, we were quite worried for you initially here because of the Anotand age up was in good timing, and it was looking like it might punish you quite severely for the investment into fishing ships. But this double dock healing and using the fishing ships to fight was just very, very well played. Was that the plan all along, knowing you can stem the initial sort of Dow or Springald in terms of dealing damage with the fishing ships and you'd be fine and then be ahead? Or were you a bit worried?
My plan this game actually was, if you guys noticed, like, I moved my villager to Anotand's dock at the start of the game. I really just wanted to be on the same dock as Anotand, because 2 o'clock has a better economy than Delhi, and I was pretty confident if I played well, I would win the water. So yeah, I was a little bit behind on the age up, but I had more fishing boats, I had double dock, so I wasn't super worried about it, honestly. As long as he doesn't get the double dock up, like, I'll just outproduce him in military ships. So honestly, this game I'm not a huge 2 o'clock fan, but I mean, after this game, maybe I should be because honestly, it went perfect. Like
They're
nothing
so
went wrong
good.
this game. Like yeah, they're so good.
Yeah, I know, right? Like once this eco kicks in, and you're completely right. Like that was what we were theorizing, that obviously your eco is better, so why wouldn't you want to be on the same pond and fighting, right? It just makes complete sense. And obviously that worked out very well there. And yeah, when you held this push as you was coming in, I knew it's so rough for Anotand from here on out, because I mean here you are an age down as Delhi against the Civ with super fast upgrades. Like I mean it's cooked, no? Like
It's kind of cooked, yeah. I mean, honestly, I was surprised he took that fight, but I guess at that point he's kind of desperate. Like, it's just I don't know how many skulls he had, but I was in the back of my mind, even at this fight, I'm like, it's gonna take him forever to get castle age upgrades. Like, and meanwhile, I already have a war elephant on the field. Like, so I was really confident at this point. Even before going down, it's like whatever.
yeah, I mean, part of me was hoping he gets Castlage so that we can see just two elephants, like, you know, headbutting each other repeatedly. I think it would have been pretty entertaining if you ask me, but sadly, that's a story for a different day. Yeah, it culminated very well. This was quite a textbook game, I would say, almost, and quite well played. Delhi pick was interesting to me, really, because obviously, like you remember these days, way back when Delhi was a relatively common pick on this map, right? Because of the fishing ships. But obviously, you know, stuff like Japan came out, etc., other good hybrid civs, so not so much anymore. But I guess you can still have a place. But against the sort of upper echelon water hybrid civ like Tuklak, it's very difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised by the Delhi pick too. I know Anatan likes Delhi on this map, so I was happy about it, right? But surprised and yeah, happy about it.
And it all culminates in the most classic of matchups here. On, as I said at the beginning, thought I made a good joke. In the least classic of maps, we have Socotra here, English against French, and I mean this was a very textbook opening here, right? We have the ball opener with the tower, and this is exactly what English needs here, doesn't it? And nice early wars to prevent any kind of run by. The game kind of played out exactly how I envisioned it, really, that it could theoretically go, right? That both sides would probably play really defensive, because one wrong move from either of you is just game over like that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the only thing I was really worried about was him like fast castling or like having a fast guild hall or something, going imp or something. Other than that, like I was really happy to just sit back, build my farms, because I feel like English on this map with the longbows, you just have such a massive advantage with the longbows. Like they're just so strong. Like yeah.
Were you a bit surprised that he actually banned? I mean, Jushi's obviously amazing as well, and Zuganu pose kind of a similar problem where you can almost never engage into them. But in a way, I don't know, I feel like they're slightly more vulnerable than English early on, in the feudal age especially, I would say. So slightly surprised to see him prioritize banning Jushi over English on this map specifically. Do you agree with that, or does it make sense to you?
Actually, I agree with that, honestly. I think I was happy that I got English, honestly. I mean, English versus French, I think, on this map in particular is not that bad. Like maybe on like Arabia or like a bold land, it's really bad because they can abuse the mobility. But on this map, he killed a bunch of villagers, but I just sit in the middle with the white tower, and the game is super easy for me. Like he's like, I mean, I'm pushing so far forward, and my army isn't even that much. I mean, it's smaller than his, but I just retreat back to the white tower, and it's just really easy to play English on this map.
It's part of using just is very smart to utilize walls here and kiting effectively, right? I mean, we saw just in the earlier clip, it took 3 volleys without the network for the knights to finally close in on the longbows. Like the amount of damage they have to sustain because of this ranged advantage and effective kiting it's so difficult on this map, just like you said. So it's, yeah, I mean, if both sides aren't effective, he'd had some great movements and got some great raids going on you, attacking from 3 sides at once at one point, and dealt great damage, but exchanged a lot of his army for that in turn, which, you know, an even trade is an advantageous trade for English in this kind of a situation, isn't it?
Yeah, and as the game goes on, like I have the farms, he has the guild hall, but I saw that he was pretty much using it just to stay alive. And when you that's the situation for French, it's a bad situation. And I mean, I was pretty comfortable almost this entire game. Like even after losing a lot of villages on the wood line, I knew that the game was not over as long as I got the white tower super far forward. And once I did that, I mean, everything like with the walls, like it's just so easy to play the game here.
There's one final question, if we may, just about this game in particular. We saw there was a very minimal commitment to trebs, let's call it. You only had the one initially, and then only one extra after you lost the first one, which I found interesting because a lot of players, especially with the white tower in that position, would probably get a bit overzealous and commit to too many trebs, and then just lose them and potentially lose the game, right? I've seen that happen a few times. Was that a conscious choice in your mind, making sure that the longbow count stays up and that you get the farms needed, and knowing that one, maybe at most 2 trebs eventually will do the job over time, and you just have to keep them alive?
Yeah, that was pretty much the idea. I mean, the idea being his food is like he doesn't have as much food as me because I have the cheaper farms and stuff. So as long as I have a bigger army than him, I don't need more siege than him. I can just win with my army and pull back to the white tower. If he masses a bunch of trebs, then it means he's not going to have the same amount of army, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic, Wham, and I don't want to keep you any long. I'm sure you are absolutely drained, as we are. If you can spare one additional question for us, that question inevitably would be: you have secured yourself now. You have joined the ranks of Marine Lord in the main event now. You are the first 2. 2 more will be decided. I know you're going to say Puppy Paw, of course. He's amazing, and he is your brother, naturally. So let's just say removing Puppy Paw from the equation, just to keep things a bit more spicy here. If you can't pick Puppy Paw, who are the 2 other players that you think sort of have the best chance?
Honestly, it's really difficult to say. I mean, there's just so many people. Like Anotand, BC, and Vortex, I'd say have the best shot. I haven't played against Rusev. I don't know Myriad. I mean,
One day.
It's not impossible. I mean, but Vortex played very well against me, honestly. I think if he did a few different things, he could have won many of those games. Same with Beastie, same with Anotand. So, I mean, honestly, I don't even want to pick because it's too difficult. Like, it wouldn't even make sense.
It's completely understandable. I mean, they're so close by that, you can't guarantee a return on your prediction in terms of being right and ego points, right? So what's the point at the end of the day? But Wham, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've played some stellar games and you've done very well. All I can wish you is the best of luck, and hopefully I will see you there as well in person.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Take care.